So good morning. Thank you to anybody joining live on YouTube, Facebook, or on Zoom. Our first presentation is in about 25 minutes. So I will be gradually adding people into the Zoom room, and we'll just recap a little bit on what we've done over the first 2 days. For anybody who is on Zoom, the interpretation button is on the bottom and allows you to be able to listen in Ukrainian, Romanian, or English. There's also 3 YouTube channels streaming live in each of those languages. We will add the comments, the links in the bottom of the chat 2 or 3 times during the morning for the YouTube links if you want to follow that way. If you have any questions, please put them in either the YouTube chat or in the chat at the bottom of the Zoom, and we'll pick them up. Ideally, we'll pick them up during the day, but the more complicated questions or questions where we don't have the expert to be able to answer, we will take away. And like a lot of the product from the last 2 days and today, we will put into we will put onto our website over the next few weeks. Just bear with us on this because we do have a lot of product, a lot of videos, a lot of material, a lot of information that we need to get out to everybody. So it will take a while to put those onto the website and into our social media. We don't have a Telegram channel right now, but follow on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. You'll find all that through www.naturewatch.org. Please also don't forget World Animal Day next week. Share any posts, add any posts, do anything you can for animals on 4th of October, or go to the website, which I think is worldanimalday.org.uk. I'll need to check that. We'll put that in the chat. So the first 2 days, incredible amount of speakers. We've had 19 speakers from right around the world, covering a huge range of issues, predominantly looking about what's been happening since the 24th of February 2022 for all of the animals in Ukraine and neighbouring countries. We will be hearing from Poland later on this morning about the impact of what's been happening, particularly in the border areas, but just inside Poland as a result of the invasion from the 24th of February. We're also going to hear, hopefully, from New Animals, who have been coordinating a response across the whole of Ukraine and were working in Ukraine well before February, obviously. We've got an excellent speaker from Greece, police psychologist, understanding criminal motivation later today. We'll be hearing from Alevtina from Open Cages about diet and food and animal welfare issues in the military. So we've got a really good day. There are no breaks planned from about 10:30 Ukraine time until probably it's going to finish just before 2, hopefully the conference today, which is 12 o'clock UK time. So there's no breaks. So make sure in the next 20 minutes you've got a coffee, glass of water, and very comfortable, and listening to the last 4 presenters of what's been, for me, a really, really great conference. Really pleased how it's gone. And it's gone well because of all the people working behind the scenes. Interpreters have been amazing. I have no idea what people are saying, but I have listened onto the YouTube channels, and it sounds brilliant. Been so impressed that we've managed to do this in so many languages. It is quite complex, challenging, but I think it's been important to be able to reach as many people as we can, right across Ukraine, Romania, and the border areas in particular. We've been hugely affected by the war, and not just them, obviously the animals. So some great talks. Please pop any questions in the chat. Now we've got an opportunity to talk through those questions we might be a little bit tight for time later. So this is a really good opportunity for us. While we've got 2 or 3 experts from Nature Watch online, then we can hopefully answer some of your questions.
Are you ready for some questions?
I'm ready for some questions if there are some. Yeah.
There are questions from our registration forms.
Okay, should we go through those?
Yes. So the question was, what about preparedness and risk reduction? I think that the person meant the risk management, about if something is going to happen to other countries, some disasters. Okay. Could you please tell about this?
I think for me, one of the big points that I picked up from listening to Kharkiv Bat Rescue was that they had done preparation work prior to the invasion. It's certainly something that I think a lot of shelters, understandably, partly through time, finance, just not being aware that it was necessary, probably didn't do. How do you anticipate for a disaster, a crisis, a situation like that? But certainly what I'm picking up from what happened at Borodyanka is that it's a good idea for shelters to have some kind of contingency plan, the what happens if situation. I don't know how we get that message. There are so many rescues, so many potential eventualities. I don't know how you do that. But I personally, it seems to make sense to me that you at least have some kind of plan as to what are we going to do if that person can't get to the dogs, can't get to the cats, can't get to the wild animals. How are we going to ship them out if all of a sudden something happens? And there's a huge issue hitting the west coast of the US at the moment. I don't know how prepared they'll be for the zoo areas for flooding. I4 have a disaster relief team. HSI have a disaster relief team. Maybe we should be helping to coordinate something like that so that at least people are considering what to do if you've got a shelter. I don't know how you progress that. If anybody's got any thoughts beyond that for shelters, then I think maybe one of these questions that we can put back out into our social media again and try and pick up some responses and then put the solutions back out on our website. Maybe that's something we can do. Any other questions from the pre-registrations?
Yes. The question is how small business can help to support. I think it's probably not to you question, but to our speakers. Well, I mean the other speakers, but you might know I guess we can just give the contacts of the organizations, because not only
we had a similar question from Nowzad, I know, earlier on, right at the beginning of the conference. And I think it's something that's come through listening to UPOR about having a structure now that didn't exist on the 24th of February. So should small businesses be helping individual rescues, or should they be helping like a collaboration such as UPOR? And that's up to the small business to make that decision what they want to do. There will always be small organisations that don't fall within the conglomerates that maybe is UPOR. So everybody needs some help, but there has to be individual choice as to whether you want to support one of the bigger organisations, or the individual shelters, or somebody with 2 or 3 cats that needs just as much attention. You won't get everybody working together. I just can't see that happening in any country. It certainly doesn't happen in the UK. I can't see it happening in other countries.
Yeah. What else we have here? One moment. How to evacuate animals abroad as part of the shelter. So as far as I understand, people want to find out how to evacuate animals who don't have owners. This is what Kate would explain better, but maybe you know.
Yes, I mean, there's obviously an issue at the moment in relation to importing to the UK, and I think from outside of Ukraine, Eurogroup for Animals are doing quite a lot of work on that. I would contact is it Violetta, who is now the Ukraine coordinator at Eurogroup for Animals, and see what their current position is.
Next question is probably to you as now as an educator, how to change attitude of community towards animals, how to correctly communicate this idea.
How do you change attitudes towards animals? I think going back to the One Health approach, it was an interesting talk. If anybody's missed that, to go back and is it Alexandra from Vets Without Borders? I don't think it's about, for me, I don't think it's about changing attitudes to animals. It's about changing attitudes that include animals, the environment, and people as part of an equilateral triangle, that everybody has the same needs and attention. And then you pick up from what Andrew Campbell was saying, in that you can't deal with one unless you deal with them all. So unless you're dealing with all of those issues, then if you're dealing with animals and people and the environment at the same time, everything moves forward together. But if you deal with one part of it, other parts will be affected. So how do you change attitudes? For me, it's not necessarily giving animals more rights. It's just making them an equal part of the solution. Stray animal management. There's a good, I think again, it's I4 have got a really good video, which if I can find before the end of the day, I'll share in the chat, about changing attitudes. I've got a very special guest who's just arrived actually in the room this morning.
Hope she will like the content.
I've just had a message from Olga that she will be here on time, so that's good news.
Yeah, and we've got one more question for you, Mark. The question is actually on your topic. Since you've started educating police officers about the link, have you seen any changes in attitude of police officers towards animals in Ukraine and in the other countries?
Yes, I mean, I think one of the best examples that I can think of immediately is that very, very soon after we did the training in Chernivtsi, I'm trying to think of the head of the police there at the time. I can't think of his name at the moment. But within 2 days, he'd taken his battalion down to the local rescue, so that they could start working with the local rescue and finding homes for the dogs. So the minute we did that training, that changed. And he has now gone off to work somewhere else. So his impression of our training will now have an impact on his battalion in the new place that he works in. So police officers tend to move around the country. So certainly they do in Ukraine as they get promoted. So if you can reach the right police officers, the impact that you can make can be huge. Yes, some police officers will listen to the training and they'll think it's a waste of time and they'll probably go back to doing what they were doing before. But providing you can reach enough of them to make a difference, again, we'll hear from Vagelis today in Greece, and I mean, he's making a huge difference for animals across Greece, and not just for animals, but other victims of violence by the way that he teaches and his training. and everything that he takes to all the police officers. I'm sure it won't, what he teaches doesn't resonate with every police officer, but providing it resonates with enough, that's when you'll make the change.
And some people, a lot of people in Ukraine still are sure that our country is somewhere like in the end in animal welfare acts, I mean, the legislation. Could you please apologize? Could you please tell if Ukraine is really that bad in legislation about the
I think I had this, I was doing some training in India last week, I think it was, and I was asked, you know, which countries are doing well in terms of animal welfare legislation. For me, Ukraine is doing well because it's got an opportunity to almost start from new. I mean, the changing legislation, Ukraine seems to be easier actually than it potentially is in the UK, where it's been sort of embedded and it's caught up in a mesh, and it has been for the last 200 years, and everything moves forward very, very slowly. Law 2351 was a really good example of that. Not that it was simple, and I'm sure Marina Sakova, who was obviously behind that piece of legislation with others, will say that it was simple. But to be able to write new legislation for a country with a newer legislative system, it is possibly easier than to try and change legislation that's been sitting there for 200 years. So I think there's good potential for that. And I know that Marina was disappointed because 2 or 3 pieces of the law that she wanted to get through didn't get through, particularly in relation, I think, to puppy farms, which is obviously something Nature Watch Foundation is very, very keen on. There will always be external influence. My guess, and I don't know the answer to this, but my guess is that there was possibly influence from people on the government that puppy farm, the banning of puppy farms in Ukraine shouldn't be put into legislation. So you've always got external influences, and where there's potential corruption and extensive influence, then that makes it hard. But I think Ukraine has got really good potential for good legislation once the war finishes. I know Vangelis will probably talk about Greek legislation later, but I think that there's been some good positivity happening there. I'm hopeful that the UK, Scotland's certainly got some really good legislation, particularly in relation to Domestic Violence Act and links towards coercive control using animals, which came out, I think, probably a year ago. So Scotland's got some really good legislation. Are there any more questions? I think Natalie might be slightly busy at the moment. Any questions from anybody? We're waiting for Olga to join. So Anastasia, Moldova, what can we do with Moldova then? How can we help?
Okay, I think if there was no such a resistance from our local officials, generally, from people who are simply do not have this mentality of understanding, seeing the animals, the animal welfare as we do, things would go much, much faster. What I am concerned most, actually, it's something that we had also with projects, including with Ukrainians, yes, because we also help their pets, is how to proceed when you do not have enough people. So you have to optimize as much as possible in order to help as many pets and solve as many problems. I think this is what I'd be thinking about future years, because unfortunately our people are leaving the country, and Moldova is small and getting less and less people. What are we going to do? This is what I'm concerned the most for the
So two things. there's removal of the blockages within those that are making the decisions in government, and there's getting more volunteers, more people to help you with the work that you need to do. Is that kind of where we want to get to?
Yeah, and also my vision was, and it still is, and I'm moving towards that, when I'll try to involve as much people as possible to raise this limit between, like, there's a volunteer and who is supposed to do the job related to animals because he's a volunteer, and just a bypasser or a person who is like, well, you see, you're a volunteer and I do not know anything. I mean, we had such some unpleasant situation when we tried to tell them, no, you find this animal, please take it to the vet. It's not the job of a particular people who belong to animal organization, to volunteers. At least in my environment, these people that I befriend, who I'm friend with, they are really responsible. They are not volunteers, but still, they know that, okay, they found it a pet, they can only ask me about information, where to get it, and they are dealing by themselves with all this. So basically, it's not about being a volunteer or being an animal welfare activist or whatever. It's just purely human. So that's what I'm trying to do, to reach to as many people as possible. Of course, it's done from the perspective, okay, you deal with ecology, we help you, you tell me about your issue, and I try to spread it among my group of people. And then, please, I tell you about my issue, and you try to understand it and spread the word. So that's the only way, of it moving.
Were you able to listen to Elena Barron's presentation from Open Cages yesterday?
Yesterday, but I think all this presentation I'll be like re-listening after that and just picking up the right ideas that could work here.
But Open Cages have I think a good way of attracting volunteers who actually do more rather than just expect you to as you say, a bypasser. I think it might be worth having a conversation with Elena. Not that you need to open. They might not want to get Open Cages a branch in Moldova, but at least to talk about their volunteer experience. They have a high turnover of volunteers, I think, probably because they're younger and they've got other careers to go to. But they always seem to have enough volunteers to do things. So that, even borrowing their volunteer model might be something that's useful. She might be able to advise on that. I think she gave her contact details out, which I'll give you anyway. If you missed them, I'll send you those.
Also about volunteers, for example, I have a lot of job to do, which is less related to the volunteer work, and it's more related to law, stuff like that. And we're discussing here with Natalia, maybe I should go and learn to be a lawyer. Okay, how much time does it take? Oh my God, it takes another 4 years, and then specialization in animal welfare. That's quite a lot of stuff. And also with the volunteers, they are already, so they have more experience, like 5-10 years. There's no reason for them to listen to me because I'm a new person. I do not have so much experience, and even what I do in animal welfare is totally different from what they do. Yes, because my petition legislations, go and talk to this official, go and talk to that organization, let's try to do it. And I thought that maybe I should understand how they work, how they function, how they see work, and see how to better organize from what we already have. Because these people have been doing some job for years. I mean, volunteering, saving, rescuing, getting them to the vet. And they have their way of doing stuff. Yep. And I don't think they'll be like, let's change it, like, let's do a restructuring here. And that also should be taken in account because there is this thing that we do not sometimes understand it. They do not understand what I am doing, and I sometimes cannot understand why they think the way they think, and they do not think the way I think, and do not see the way I see these things. So there's a bit of the, misunderstanding maybe, because I'm asking sometimes, why did you do like this? Because maybe you had to do like this. Well, because in my view, this would be better. And then they say their point of view, because this, and that. And here it's something that we have to work with. What we already figure out is we need to have, because Moldova is small, right? Moldova is like, okay, it's not like Kharkiv, but in any case, Moldova is small itself, so it's easier to organize everything. And what I've already managed, again, thanks to the opportunity that I had to work with Ukrainians, is to get the context of vet clinics from all around Moldova. So next step would be to get context of volunteers, contacts from all the towns and villages or whatever, and to see what's the issue in each of them, and then to see how we can organize, because it's really important everything to be coordinated correctly. That I know for sure. How to tackle them, which strategy to take in order to make them trust us or to make them see us as a reliable partner, this is still a question. Probably I'm not the best person yet for such job. Yeah.
I don't know this, but do you have any specialists in animal law in Moldova?
So now Carl is working with an organization, but it's mostly Carl again, and it's a lawyer who I think she did some law on ecology, I think, and this person who's an ecologist, he advised, like recommended her to Carl, and as far as I know, that this person is said that she did not expect there to be so many subtleties, and if she would be asked again whatever she'd like to join the project to work on animal law, she said that she'd just think twice, because she'd never expect how many things and how many details, aspects does this subject have. Yes, so that's as far as I know regarding the laws. The lawyer. We do not have, of course, a lawyer that deals with animals. So when I need consultation, that's basically some simple lawyers who I tell them the situation, and they try to adjust, like how we can do, like you can do this, you can do that, but it's not like a professional,
Okay. Good morning, Olga. I understand you've... Hello.
Доброго дня, Ольга.
Good morning, Olha. We are extremely happy to have you here among our speakers. Let me introduce her. This is Olha Chevhanyuk, a co-founder of an NGO called You Animals. This organization has been in existence since 2016, and now they contribute a lot in terms of helping shelters, in terms of providing them with food, doing evacuations, and so on. And now Olha is going to present to us what they're doing now during the war. Glory to Ukraine. Could you tell me which language I should speak? Please speak Ukrainian. All right, wonderful. Mark, I have shared. There is no sound from the speaker. Your microphone is off, Olha.
Thank you for opening the presentation. So yeah, Якою мовою, скажіть, просити перемикати мені слайди на
So which language do I use to switch the slides? Who is going to do it? Is Mark going to do it in English? Then say it
yes,
in
I will.
English.
I will just say the next slide. I'll do that.
Перекладати з української мови. Дякую.
Okay, I will tell you next, please, and then you will switch. So let's start from the first one. І так, доброго ранку.
All right, then good morning. We are from Ukraine, and I think that every Ukrainian is proud to introduce themselves like that. So let's begin. I want to start with a short personal story. This is not to present myself, but just to transition to the fact of telling you how UA Animals as an organization responded to war and what has happened to us as a specific structure, but also as personalities, and what is it that we do in order to preserve as many lives as possible in conditions that are surrounding us right now. So when the war started, I was abroad, I was on vacation, and I had no anticipation whatsoever that things like that were going to happen. So when the war started, of course, I couldn't use my tickets anymore. I was supposed to come back on 10th of March. So my choice came down to the fact that either I travel through different countries or I stay abroad, where I was located back then. So a part of my team at that time was already hiding in shelters. Others were emotionally shattered because they couldn't fully operate. They were relocating, going abroad. And the backbone of our team started acting immediately, that we see the results of the work that we do starting February 24th. I will be honest with you, I don't know how this happened, but starting February 24th, we already started providing informational and financial support to huge numbers of people, and started 25th of February, we already had the first report of our daily activities, and we have continued issuing these reports every day. So this is when I took a decision to stay abroad for some time, and I understood that my personal function here is to coordinate, and I would become a better coordinator while I'm abroad. But later, it became not enough for me. I realized that I want to hug my loved ones, and I want to go to Kharkiv, be it under shelling or not. And so I wanted to go back. I have returned. I live now in Odessa. Right now I'm located in Kyiv because the biggest part of our team is located here, and we're doing a strategic session these days. But this is the defining moment for me, because the transparency of our activities is defining, be it on the Ukrainian market or on the foreign market. The fact that we issue a report on our activities for every single day, and it's a full-fledged report that reflects the work that we do. And this, for us, opens doors to the most important thing that charity organizations strive for, that is trust. Because trust means that we are referred, we are recommended, people want to cooperate with us. We try reaching out to foreign markets, and we have fully transparent financial reporting. Everybody knows that they can trust us, they trust us with their money. It's all on accessible Google Drive that anybody can access and take a look. So in terms of this being a priority for any organization, I would say that this is transparency, openness, accountability, because I know about other organizations that do that much and tell us this much, and this is wrong because this is not where you should try to be modest. Please, next slide. So if you guys haven't heard about us before, let me tell you a couple of words. This is one of my favorite pictures. This is a march where we stand for the rights of animals that happens every year in September. During the times of COVID, we had the first online march, but prior to COVID, we would have this march in all regional centers, and the latest one happened in all big Ukrainian cities, and in Kyiv we have thousands of people that take to the streets, which proves that people care, that people aren't indifferent in all the regions of Ukraine. And the scale of this event allows us to later talk to the people that are lawmakers, with opinion leaders, because we see that talking about protection of animals and adopting the laws on protection of animals, it is important, and this is not only something we care about as trans organization from Kyiv. This is also very important because it unites us, it inspires us, and the aims that we declare during the march, we follow through with them every day during the year. We also are able to change public opinion through this. Apart from this, we have an interfactional committee of deputies called A Humane Country. So what we do is we draft bills, we try to promote them, we try to make sure that they are adopted and approved. We also perform the functions of a media. So all the work that we manage to get done, all this efficiency that we have been able to achieve, this is owing to the fact that it's not like we have the work that we do and we have social media that tell about this, but we work and our social media works like a media outlet that is tapped into. So this is a point of contact with different kinds of audiences, with specific people, with business and so on. So you animals could be broken down into you animals as a media outlet that communicates the right values to people even during the times of war. And this was the first change that we implemented. This was the creation of a so-called call center. I'm going to talk about it in more detail later. Also, You Animals as a charitable organization, which covers all of our projects with rehabilitation, delivery of food, and so on. And UA Animals as public organization that is our mouthpiece in the state on different levels, starting on the level of working with police and all other levels as well. Please, next slide. So what I wanted to say is that prior to the beginning of war, our team was no more than 5 people. Of course, we additionally had volunteers, representatives in other cities, but that was the backbone that operated regularly. So the people for whom that was their main activity, the number of these people was very limited. Now we have around 30 people, 28 or 29, for whom this is a full-scale job. Additionally, we have volunteers that help us and also people that we cooperate with for instance, on some special issues, for instance, evacuating animals in Kryvyi Rih. So the war started, and of course, this is also reflected within our conference, but we started a lot of pressing issues. So the first task that we received through social media, through Facebook. So during the first 2 months, we have received more than 2,000 messages through Facebook only. Next slide, please.
People will see what was happening. And next with the text, please. Тобто ми зрозуміли, що це той момент, коли
So we have realized that we cannot ignore these messages. We tried to respond to the messages on social media before, but this was never an obligatory task. We didn't have a special person or people that knew that it was their job to read all the messages and there needs to be a response, be in a consultation or whatever. We didn't have a model like that. We received some messages. Most often we didn't even have time to read them. We could respond to the most important ones. And if there were very important things, people would just tag us or write an email. So this was just an additional resource that we didn't tap into. But when the war started, we created the call center really fast. And it wasn't because I'm such a good manager or a wonderful operational director, but because in some way, people started joining us, the people that cared to be able to help, to be able to participate, and they started structuring it all, writing responses, collecting a team. Huge number of volunteers responded to people. So what does it mean? They helped them. They said what they should do in this or that situation, how to evacuate animals.
воно якимсь чином сформувалось до того, що потім ми зробили бот.
So it has been establishing, and we have set up the chatbot, and people were able to get the answers without any participation of the human. A person actually was able to choose the answer, to get the answer, and as a result, we got lots of people who were very grateful for this. At that time, it was really important because we were the ones who were trying to find the answers and who were actually rendering these answers to other people. You remember what was happening in Kyiv. Lots of animals were trapped in the floods. The neighbors were writing to us. Somebody needed evacuation. So the activity of few animals was aimed at saving all the animals. And we see that also the farming animals are suffering as well. And in case we were able to interfere, and we are able to interfere, we do it. We have launched a number of projects. If we are talking about different species of animals, so one of the latest examples I will actually get from the beginning of the war to the current period. We got united with Natalia's Popova shelter in Kyiv. This was a shelter for wild animals. Why we started cooperating with them? We have been doing it since the beginning of the war, and now we decided to enhance something we can do well. This is communication, visual aids, fundraising. As a result, we got united, and now we are called the Center for Rescuing Wild Animals of Natalia Popova and Few Animals. It is located not far from Kyiv. And what we are doing now, we rescue the wild animals from dangerous zones. If we are allowed to take domestic animals as well. We are doing it, but the situation is a bit more complicated because in the majority of cases, the owner who actually left the animals unattended very often says, well, I'll do it myself, I'll take the animals myself. And it is understandable why it's like that, because the person is trying to earn some money. But unfortunately, if we get this answer, we cannot just take these animals and rescue them. Therefore, the number of rescued animals from the farms is unfortunately not very big, but at least there are some positive cases. As far as wild animals are concerned, the number of such animals is huge. I actually was very much surprised that there are so many of one species of animals. Well, I am involved in animal protection, and I was still very much surprised regarding the population of this animal. Unfortunately, we do not have the active dialect right now, but these were the lions. I could never think that in Ukraine there are so many lions. And I would say that up till now, it's already the actually 8 months of war, and we still get calls from the private owners, or they contact us themselves, and they just say, oh, here is my lion, I have to do something about it. Yes, it's September already. Or, for example, we get calls from neighbors, from the neighboring houses, see that, well, there is a cage and there is a lion in that cage. So I'm talking about lions, I'm talking about bears, some smaller animals. And now Ukraine has really good time because you know that at the beginning of the war there was a bit simplified CITES system, and later the system was not simplified. So now we require longer period to examine the animal. So it takes a bit longer from the moment we have the animal to the moment the animal is transported abroad. But we try to do everything possible to accelerate the procedure. Could you please change the slide? We see kids, we see animals, people who are suffering.
Next slide, please. Просто по одній картинці
Just one picture per time, from some smaller things to the global activities, because actually our global activities comprises some small elements. There are lots of cases of direct assistance, and all these cases make up a project. So project number 1, rehabilitation. All the animals that were injured, were wounded, go through rehabilitation. And here you see a cat. His name is Mася, if I'm not mistaken, and this is the black cat. So we got the call that the cat was injured, and it turned out that it was a bullet wound. So we managed to rescue him, and he was treated. Currently, we made our choice. It was not an easy choice, but I think it was the correct one. So our choice was to provide assistance to the most suffering areas and regions. For example, we get calls about assistance through the call center, actually, I was talking about. So we get calls from different cities and different places, including Odessa, which is relatively safe, and the shelters have absolutely everything to buy pet food, to fundraise, etc. At the beginning of the war, we to help everybody, but later we understood that we should take the most challenging tasks. Just because we can do it, we have the resources, we have information resources, human resources, we have trust, we can do fundraising. So we set our own rule. We get calls and requests, and the first to get assistance will be the occupied territories or territories under shelling, in case we can reach these territories, or in case we can, for example, evacuate the territories, or in case we, for example, provide financial assistance. For example, if it is impossible to reach these territories physically, we do financial assistance. We understand that undershelling are our undershelling areas are our priorities. Then there are like occupied territories. Then there are animals that were taken to the safe regions from those unsafe ones. Let's say refugee animals, so IDPs who took their animals with them. So this is the priority list. And only after this, if we have resources, be it time or human resources or financial resources, we already can cover the other regions and provide assistance to them. So actually, safe areas like Kyiv, Odessa, Lviv, they are not in the focus of our attention. So probably they get about 10% of our efforts, and 90% of our efforts are spent on those who really need it. Slide, please. I'll be really happy to have dialogue with you. I see the chat. In case you have any questions, please put them in the chat and I will follow your questions. And we may cover everything, be it structure, our activities, practical cases, because I'm here for you. So food delivery or humanitarian aid delivery. Again, one specific case that illustrates our activities on a large-scale basis. There was a woman taking care of these animals. And when she wrote to us, she gave animals cereals from some potato leftovers and from some wheat leftovers. So she was actually she went to the fields. She found some leftovers of wheat, and that was the cereal she made for the animals. We delivered some humanitarian aid, some food to her, for the animals to have normal pet food. We do have very tragic and awful pictures, and one of the most terrible one was when Kyiv region was occupied and Hostomel shelter sent the photos to me. Probably you have seen these photos. They didn't have electricity at that time, and without electricity they were not able to cook, and definitely she wouldn't get water as well, because water supply dependent on electricity supply. And when I'm asked what is the most difficult part in our activities, I answer nothing. But when we are limited physically to provide assistance, this is very big moral load. For example, I'm here, I'm drinking my coffee, and here is Hostomel shelter that cannot feed their pets, and you cannot deliver anything to them. This feeling of helplessness is the most difficult one for us as the animal protectors. Physically, you cannot rescue them, you cannot evacuate them, you cannot deliver food to them, you cannot go there, there is no phone connection, and you understand that the animals are almost dying. Everything else can be resolved. We have a great team, we have great human resources, and people are ready to do everything in case they can do it physically. So how food delivery or humanitarian aid is supplied? We have a warehouse in Lviv. We also have a warehouse in Kyiv for our logistical goals, and our team takes what we need from this Kyiv warehouse, and from Lviv we actually supply up to 80%. We try to focus a lot on hay because we have lots of horse stables. When it was peaceful times, they were earning money for themselves, but right now they cannot do it, and therefore we purchase lots of hay. And I understood that there are the so-called muesli or cereals for horses, and we also deliver this to these stables, as well as some other things. So this is the basic things for we do. Next slide, please. Here is a question. Do we have an opportunity to assist shelters in the occupied territories, and whether we have this experience? Yes, we do have this experience practically every day. Whenever it's possible, we do it. This is our internal desire of my desire and creativity of our colleagues to think something up and to make it happen. Sometimes we can come into contact with the shelters in the occupied territories and provide financial assistance. Sometimes we act through the Red Cross. Sometimes we manage to do it through the military. So it's possible, but unfortunately, the percentage is low. It's really difficult right now to do something for the occupied territories. But even if we have the smallest chance, we do it. The next project we deal with is the project that appeared, that we launched when the shock was reduced a bit, when we understood that the fire, to some extent, let's say metaphorically, was put out, and we understand that we also can do the sterilization project, and it should be put on a larger scale. It should be upscaled. This is one of the dogs we sterilized. There was a tragic story. It was left by owners once, then it was left unattended for the second time. She had problems with paws. We treated her and later sterilized her. Next slide, please. We understood that it was necessary to sterilize animals because, first of all, they are left unattended. Secondly, the shelters cannot accept so many animals. And the third point, if we do not do it now, when the war is still ongoing, we shall face huge overpopulation of animals, and it will be extremely difficult to deal with this issue later. And we understand that sterilization is a humane method to control the population of animals. We are talking about animals who are suffering from thirst, from cold, from hunger, and therefore we promote sterilization. Here is the old slide, but it's really nice, therefore I put it here. Now there are more points of sterilization. Here you see all the places where our sterilization program is ongoing. So we fundraise for the program. We find people that organize sterilization. For example, these people find a good vet clinic or a good vet doctor that can offer also rehabilitation, because for a couple of days the animal is supposed to be supervised, and actually the volunteers can bring the animals and sterilize them. Next slide, please. Definitely, we would like to work with other methods. I'm in the legislative ones, but so far we do not understand what we can do in order to reduce the number of strayed cats and dogs. Therefore, now we do what we can do here and now. This is the goat. I'm very sorry, I cannot give you the exact name of the species, but this is a goat, and this is a volunteer. She's Petya. She is from Bulgaria, and she was working in Pata, and then she moved to Ukraine, and she is cooperating with us. So this goat was left by the owners to the neighbors. The neighbors were supposed to look after him, and the owners moved abroad. Well, moved somewhere. When their city was deoccupied, they came back, but they were coming back through Kharkiv region, and these were not safe areas at that time, and unfortunately they actually died on their way home, and the neighbors were not able to look after this goat anymore, and we actually evacuated him and were trying to rehome him. Next one, please. Financial support. This is the photo of one of the stables damaged under shelling. A couple of words about financial assistance. So in case we cannot provide physical assistance or send pet food, we provide financial support, and very often it is much quicker. So we have the gradation, what funds are sent to what animals. We have a very clear structure. So at least 7 payments a day are made by us.
At the same time, I think it's all clear, but I would like to tell you to share, because this picture reminded me, maybe it's a compromise, but still, being an organization of this kind, we understand that horse stables is not a good thing, that animals are exploited, that very often horses have problems with their backs and so on. But in terms of war, there are some spheres where animals are exploited, which we don't support, but still here and now, without supporting their operations, we still can provide them with finances, with food, and so on, because we need to save the animals. That's why we have help stables, we help zoos, we helped a park which was not an eco park. We provided financial help to delphinariums, and it's ridiculous, because I'm sure that their owners have money to sustain these institutions. And previously there was an announcement that they didn't have enough money to feed the dolphins, and we sent money to them. And this means that we don't support their operations, but we cannot allow the animals to suffer here and now. Please, next slide. So, rebuilding project, it materialized as a result of shelters that were destroyed by shelling. So we pick the ones that are most efficient and effective, that do their work well, and we help them to do renovations. For us, this is much more appealing in terms of the fact that this is a long-term investment, because food and medicines, this is something that shelters are always lacking, and in a month this is gone and you need to solve the problem again. But rebuilding is a one-time thing, and you know that they are safe, warm, and so on. So now I think we're working with the shelter in Hostomel. I think their roof was damaged and many other things, so we helped them with rebuilding. We also did the rebuilding in Chernihiv, the Didanko shelter. The woman there, she lost her own house, but she never abandoned the animals. She stood by them. Other important point is that we are finishing up the renovations in Askania Nova. If you haven't heard of it, it's a wonderful natural reserve that is a home to thousands of various animals. But since it's a reserve, it's a protected territory, they have some kinds of animals that need to have shelter for winter, so they need to seek shelter in a special premises. They cannot really go through winter in natural circumstances, in natural environment. So Askania Nova is now under occupation. This is to the person that asked about occupied territories. And we know the problems that are there, that men disappear, men are taken away. So the head of the reserve is in a way on eggshells about him being taken away as well. But while he's still there, he's trying to help the animals as much as he can. And so how does this influence us as an organization? What he asked is that we accumulate a certain sum, but we send it in parcels, because he's afraid to pick up the entire sum, because he could be replaced or killed or taken away at any given time. So he uses these installments to, for instance, pay now for bricks. Yeah, so we send him enough money for bricks. The next day he pays for the works or for buying something else, and so we send it in installments to him, and he has done quite a lot. So please, next slide. This is it on the projects. So here we have some specific cases, and they approximate these numbers. These are the figures from 2 months ago, I believe. 460,000 kilograms of feed. You can see that this is for domestic animals and birds of around 223,000 kilograms, and for cats and dogs it's around 237 tons of feed. Then you can also see the indicators of the numbers of animals. We started counting because we realized that this must be a KPI for us, because it's not that important to understand the financial dimension of assistance, but number of animals matters. For instance, if I have an application for saving one animal, an application for saving 600 animals, then probably I'm going to opt for the second application, even though, of course, every life matters and we would love to save everybody. So we started counting the number of animals that have been fed, sterilized, and so on. So 3,500 animals in around 30 cities. Please, next slide. So this is the sum total that has been spent on all of these needs over this period of time. This is a fantastic amount of money because before the war, we never operated on this scale, and many things were solved in other ways. We only did fundraisings for some shelters, construction work, and so on. But we were compelled to grow in the field of fundraising as well in order to tackle the scope of the disaster that we are facing right now. And of course, for now, fundraising is a priority task for us. Please, next slide. The capacity that people have to donate is quickly reducing, but the needs in terms of assistance aren't going down. So we need to look for some alternative means. So why do we have a military man here with a dog? And I would like to highlight this specifically separately, that when people save our lives, Ukrainian lives, they have to also watch out for their comrades. They also have to take care of their own selves, their physical and mental conditions, and still they find enough energy. They are kind enough to keep also saving animals in the vicinity. Please, next slide. I think that this testifies to the spirit, to Ukrainian spirit that we all have, that longs for saving all the lives. We have a lot of animals coming in through the messages from the military, and these are some of the military in the pictures. The man on the left, he brought these cats from the area of hostilities. When he handed over the cats, he was crying. He was very grateful, and he didn't want to accept the feeds for him to feed the cats along his route. He said, I will buy everything myself. We have enough things. Send it to somebody else. Please, next slide. So if you speak of the military and of people on the whole, I wanted to share this piece of statistics because it's very interesting. So why it's interesting? Let me explain to you. Because once again, this testifies that the matter and the issue of saving animals, people are not indifferent to it. So this company did research on how people opt for specific brands, why they pay money for it, what matters to Ukrainians, why they pick this organization over some other organization. So you can see that the first place belongs to supporting armed forces of Ukraine, then whether the brand keeps doing business in Russia, then whether the brand does voluntary activity, then the political stance of the brand, which language the brand uses, helping children, and then helping animals. So 12% spoke of helping animals. And I think this is wonderful because only at the bottom, further down, we can see underprivileged families, environmental assistance, helping children and the youth, and so on. So I think that what this communicates is that in some way, the war is going to make our society even more humane. Of course, this is a horrid reason, but none of us would have wanted this to happen. But I think that apart from terrible destruction, terrible pain that we feel in our hearts and in our minds, I think that it still at the same time is going to impact the humanity of people, the fact that people choose to be vegan, and that some laws will be easier to pass than it used to be prior to the war. Please, next slide. So I have a strong faith in Ukrainians, and that's why I think we for sure will win. And why is that? Because every life matters to us, and this expression, this statement by Mahatma Gandhi that we have quoted a lot, still is very topical. The greatness of a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way its animals are treated. So imagine that it's not just a regular situation when a nation exists, but it's other than that. The nation is protecting itself, surviving, and it's functioning under horrid conditions. And still in these conditions, we keep saving animals. So what does it say to us about the greatness of a nation? I think this says a lot. And that's why the victory is going to belong to us. Please, next slide. So how can you help? You can subscribe to our pages. You can follow also other organizations that you trust, that work efficiently. Maybe these are some local shelters. If you can help them by volunteering, help them. If you can donate, please donate. It's also important to support them informationally. And I would even say that even if you put in minimal effort into it, this will still lead to wonderful outcomes. For instance, just subscribe to a page, do a repost, and encourage your followers to subscribe. Especially, we're now looking for new English-speaking followers, whoever you can involve, whichever opinion leaders, celebrities, and so on that can share information about us. This would be of great value to us. And please, next slide. This is it on my part. I was really happy to see all of you, to be able to present to you. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to take them. Thank you for your attention.
That's all.
Olga, thank you so much for your presentation and everything that you animals have done, not just since the 24th of February, but beforehand. I'm sure everybody here is in awe about everything that you're doing to continue the greatness of your nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, a lot for being with us all the time, before war and now.
There are some contact details there. Obviously, the social media, please share the social media and please contact your animals if you think you can help them or if they can help you. I don't think there's any specific questions right now, but is it okay if they contact you afterwards if there's anything that they need to speak to you about? Is that good?
Sure, of course. We're open.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Okay, thank you once again. Excellent presentation. So much information. I mean, the volume that you've managed to do is fantastic. Thank you for everything that you do.
Thanks a lot. Дякую всім.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so we're now going to go to Poland, to the Polish border, and hear from Roxana. This is a video interview that we've done. Roxana is a dog training instructor and behavioralist specializing in dog aggression and canine communication with over 15 years of experience. Along with improving the dog-human relationship and repairing often fragile and even broken bond between dogs and their people, Her real passion is brain work, detection, and men trailing. In all of the work she does, she uses the dog's natural ability and its primal need to work with the nose to help the dog improve emotional states and hence change behaviour. She's author of programs for staff working in dog shelters, Track Down Your New Home, one of the co-founders, charity Syrociniec in Poland, and she's been helping the animals of Ukraine since the 24th of February. Dennis, are you okay with the video?
Roxana, thanks so much for agreeing to come on to the Nature Watch Foundation conference, all to discuss everything related to Ukraine and the relationship between people and animals. So we're just going to have a chat today about your involvement in everything that's been going on. So just tell me about you and your involvement so far in animal welfare, what you've done previously.
Mm-hmm. So since 2006, we are running a charity in Poland, Sierociniec. We create a sanctuary for all dogs. So people, they don't want to take care anymore of old dogs, or the public shelters, they cannot take proper care of old dogs because of the treatment, meds, the environment they need. We are adopting them, and they are staying with us to the end of their life.
Okay, amazing. So these are generally older dogs and dogs that
yes.
have a lot more needs than you would for a dog that's been
yes.
for.
Yes.
Okay. And what else do you do in terms of animal welfare? So what's your background?
My background. So I'm a dog behaviorist and dog trainer. I'm working in Poland and in UK now. I create a program, Sniff Your Home, your new home. So we try, we are still training volunteers at shelters in Poland. So they will be able to enrich the dog's life and shelter by doing some nose work.
Mm-hmm.
And people, when they see that the dog can find cinnamon, objects, or other people, because we are also teaching them how to do man-trialing with some dogs. They are like much more kind to adopt a dog with some skills. So the kids like it. So we are training volunteers. And of course, we are doing a lot of programs about animal welfare in small villages, because our charity is based in a small village. So we are trying to teach people that taking care of animals, taking the animals to the vet, all kinds of animals, is really important. Mm-hmm. So as you saw, we are now building a small vet clinic that people from the village could use for their pets, so they don't need to travel to a different village for any treatment or like vaccination and things like that.
Yeah, brilliant. That's really good to hear. And I think, we both agree that it's going to be something that's really valuable for animal welfare and obviously the community. So I guess let's go round onto Ukraine and what's going on there. So obviously we met in Medica in Poland back in March. So how did you end up in Medica? How did you get there?
So I'm from Poland, and we are living close to the Ukrainian border. And as soon as the war started, we knew we need to go there and help. So my husband and my sister and me went there in the second weekend of the war with whole car of supplies for dogs and some medication. And we went to support and organize a convoy from Medica. So on a Facebook group, a lot of people say that they are coming to Medica on the weekend. So we organized a convoy. Everyone brought whatever they were possible to arrange in such a short time. And in Lviv, Olya, our friend that is having their charity, was responsible for giving the supplies and everything to people they are in need, to give it to the shelters they need food, because at the beginning of the war, there was no point to send money to Ukraine, because they were not able to buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it was really important to create a change of food from Poland to Ukraine.
Yeah, so aid deliveries and things, because there was no produce in Ukraine to physically buy.
Yes, the biggest food company in Ukraine, the warehouse, like Purina warehouse, were closed the second day after the war started.
Yeah.
So people couldn't just buy and get any money, any food for dogs, even if they had money. Yeah.
So before you arrived in Medica, what did you expect to see and things like that? What were you expecting? Did you have any preconceived idea as to what you would find?
So I thought everything will be organized. I thought the big charities are already there with tents and like possibilities to heat the water for people, have meds for dogs, food for people, kids, and everything. What we saw was completely different and unexpected for us. So we saw a queue of people that are hungry, that are tired, with dogs and cats in buckets, plastic bags, on the hands. There was one of the dog was already so cold that it needs a electric blanket to heat, like to raise the body temperature. So we didn't expect at all what we saw, but it was good because the next time we came, 1 week later, we were much better prepared.
Yeah, because you knew what to expect, because obviously you'd had the former visit. So, I mean, obviously we have to remember that, you know, the time this all started, I remember first getting there and it was so cold. So, you know, at night when people were coming over and then queuing up, it got to something like -6 one night, didn't it?
Yes.
Which, you know, kind of changed the dynamics a little bit as to what was vital at the time.
Yes, but because we were there before, I could already tell you that people need gloves. So when it starts to be cold, we were able to take the big boxes with gloves and deliver that in the queue to people. So at least they are like don't have like frozen hands. So I think all what the small charities did, and it's just amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And what, you know, the time that we were in Medica, we initially had a few days there. So just explain a little bit about what you did, what, you know, how long we were there for, and that sort of thing in Medica.
So one of the big dog charity in Poland rented a field. A charity from Denmark brought some kind of mobile houses that we could put dogs there. And that was the point where all the help started from the beginning. So it was a point where we all met, and I met some vets, some other people, and I also were able to tell people just go there and we will organize something together. So it was amazing how many people from different countries were able to help. My husband is not a dog person. He's not he's a chemist. But he was one of the person who was able to speak English because he's Scottish and Polish at the same time. So he got involved in organizing all the help from people they are coming there from abroad. So he was responsible for people from Denmark, England, Germany, to tell them what to do, where to go, how to organize things. So like everyone were involved, and that was amazing. So on the beginning, we need really a lot of suppliers there. There was like a lot of need of transporters for dog, crates for dogs, a small amount of food, and thanks the help from Nature Watch, for example, we were able to prepare supplies back. So when we came there first time, we noticed that there is a lot of dog food, but in really big bags, and people are not able to take it with them. To carry it because the people are exhausted. They have no suitcase or anything where they can put it. So we create a supplies bag. Our friend from Poland translates it that it's like for free. So it means bezkosztowa in Ukraine. So people, we were just walking, and even if we couldn't communicate with people, we were just showing them the bag, and they could read that it's for free supplies bag for cats, dogs, or children, or moms with small children. And we could deliver that. So it was like really well organized later.
People actually expected to have to pay for things, didn't they? So aid banks,
Yes.
there was this assumption that we would be charging for things like that.
Yes, because like no one is prepared for a situation like this, and the people didn't knew that the help is for free because of the language barrier. We couldn't tell them it's for free, so they were afraid that they need to pay us for something. And on the beginning, on the border in Medica, there was only one girl who was speaking fluent Ukrainian and Polish.
Mm-hmm.
And there was so many people from so many countries. They tried to help, but they didn't know how to communicate with each other.
I remember a few times trying to explain cat and dog just by, meowing or woofing at somebody, which
Yes.
worked to a certain extent. You could establish what animal they were talking about, because obviously some of these people had arrived, say, a few hours before and gone to the nearest refugee camp and then come back to sort of pick up supplies that they obviously couldn't get or whatever. So yeah, there's quite a few occasions where I remember sort of trying to explain that fleas and ticks and things like that without actually
Yes.
being able to speak.
Because the first wave of people that arrived in Medica, that were people, they just ran away without anything, without suitcase, without food for the dogs, cats, children, without nappies, without leads often, anything. And they had no idea where to go. They didn't have like a safe place in Poland, like friends or someone else. And in the refugees camp also no one knew how to organize it on the beginning. So yes, that was like a huge misunderstanding between everyone, but everyone were amazing and trying to help.
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that initially in the first sort of 3-4 weeks after, it was people genuinely fleeing for their lives, wasn't it, from a war zone that they were terrified in. There were people that I remember that turned up with a little carrier bag full of something that they'd managed to collect, or some people with nothing at all.
But I think everyone were speaking with the heart, so that's why everyone were able to understand each other.
Yeah, definitely. And is there anything that you remember as like a standout story, or like people individually that you remember that came through with their animals?
Animals. I went there to help people with animals, but as you know, you ended like helping everyone because you just couldn't leave someone without help. But yes, with animals, I really remember the small Frenchie that was frozen. The girl was traveling already 3 days with a dog under her jacket because they just escaped as they stand. And it was winter and she was wearing trainers. And my husband brought her, I took the dog and my husband brought her a cup of hot tea. And I was trying to tell her that it's really hot and she should be careful, but her hands were so frozen that she just grabbed it and hold it. And I think like 2-3 days longer, or maybe like even 1 or 2, and the dog wouldn't make it because the girl was frozen. She couldn't warm him up with her body temperature because she was also frozen. And when we took them to the car, because they had no place to go, and I told them that there is a refugee center. So it was her brother and her mom, and we took them to the car. They fell asleep before we left the car park. They were just sleeping, like they were so tired. And then we were sitting like on the refugee center with them in the car because we didn't know if we should wake them up or not. So we were just waiting with them in the car.
First time they probably felt, safe for many days, I imagine.
Yes, because they traveled with the dog with so on the beginning you couldn't take any suitcase to the train because there was just no place. They tried to put as many people as possible to one train. So they didn't have like nothing. She didn't even have like a handy bag, nothing. She just had the dog. And I think it's amazing. And she was very brave. She was responsible for her brother and her mom. And you need to be very brave to go with your dog on holiday. So imagine going with your dog to a different country where you don't know anyone and you don't know where to stay, but still you are taking your dog with you. I think they're heroes.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think from the amount of people that we saw with their animals, so, you know, different types of animals, not just dogs, so cats, you know, rodents, and even somebody with a 50p pence terrapin that they decided to put in a jar and thought that their life is worth as much as theirs in terms of
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was amazing that people on train station decide not to put the suitcase to the train, but make a space for a dog.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or someone with a cat or any animals. I think it's amazing that people in situations like this think about their animals.
Definitely.
And that's why they need people as us there on the border. They will be able to provide small amount of food, help them with having a bowl, water, lead, collar, mats, and things like that. Because it's obvious that the big charities are helping like children, people, humans. So there needs to be always someone who is helping the animals there, because it's amazing.
And I think
people are taking them.
One thing that I think was really obvious from when we were there is that by helping animals, you are helping these people anyway, because there's a lot of people, I imagine, that haven't left Ukraine and have left themselves in quite scary and dangerous situations because they would not leave their animals behind. So, you know, by providing the animals with something, you're actually helping the people to feel more confident in leaving, you know, their country anyway.
Yes. Definitely, yes. And also all the refugee center, they create like some kind of room for animals, or like a place where you could stay. Or we met a lady with 2 dogs. They didn't like other dogs, and the Italian people in the refugee center create for her a kind of cage or something like this, and a really big room with 1,000 other peoples and dogs. And so she can feel safe there, and her dog, so she can rest. There were people, they were just like offering to walk the dog or like carrying the dog or animal in the queue. You were one of this people. So the help was amazing on the border for people.
And for her, that must have been just so important to be able to manage that situation, rather than the additional stress of having a dog reactive dog in such sort of organized chaos that was the refugee center, where you've just got so many people.
Yes, definitely. And it gave her time to rest, think what she can do later, how to deal with the situation, where to go for a shower. The people didn't have shower for a few days. So it was amazing that someone thought about this, how to help the people with animals there, so they can go and take care of themselves, to be strong, and because they need to be strong in that situation.
Yeah, definitely. So just moving on from sort of the time at Medica then, what has been happening in Poland with these people who have brought their pets over, but also the thousands and thousands of sort of street animals and shelter animals that have also been brought over from Ukraine? So what's been happening there?
So our charity, we tried to help in 3 different ways. First, it was the supplies back on the border, and that was just like a small amount of food, chewies, meds and things like that, and that was like on the border to just help them. But then the people were staying in Poland, most of them, so they needed food and things like that. So we create an email where they could write to us a message that they need food for cats, dogs, or anything else, and we were delivering that. As a small charity, we thought that maybe like 10 people will get in contact with us. We didn't expect the amount of people they were in need. They didn't know where to go, what to do with the dogs, how to get the passports and things like that, because a lot of the people were, Poland was just like a place for a few days a week, and then they were going forward. So that was a way we helped. And then the third thing what we try to do is organize as big, huge amount of money as possible and deliver that to Ukraine. And it was amazing that in Przemyśl, the warehouse, someone create a warehouse, just decide one day they will create a warehouse, and the delivery to Ukraine was complete for free. So all we need to do from our side is organize the food and make sure it will be in Przemyśl. And then it was going to different places in Ukraine, and our Ukrainian friends were responsible for distributing it to them people they were in need. Because of the language barrier, they knew better who needs the help, who stay there with dogs, who collect the dogs from the village, because there was a lot of people and they decide to stay because of different reasons. And like people from the village just gave all the dogs and cats to these people, to this house. So there were ladies, they ended with like 12 dogs and 16 cats in the house. And so our Ukrainian friends knew about these people and were able to deliver them food. It was really important.
So why do you think it's important for us to help the animals of Ukraine? So you've obviously got the owners coming over, and I understand why we'd help them. But why would we need to help the other animals that are still in Ukraine and those that are brought over?
Because they are in a war zone and they can feel, they have emotion, they are also scared. And because we know that, and we know about animal welfare, animal well-being, we need to help them. We need to help people there. They were able to help the animals there. We cannot leave animals because it's a war. It's not an excuse. So what we did, like I was calling Olya, asking them what they need. So the help is like really well organized, because we thought maybe they need that or maybe they need that. And then I called Olya and she said like, no, actually we need a lot of pasta. I was like, what do you mean with pasta? Like pasta? And she said like, yes, because most of our dogs are on home diet. They are not used to cables, to dry food, cans, and people are scared to change it now. It's not the best time to change your dog diet when there's a war. So yeah, we bought a lot of pasta and we sent pasta. We never thought they will need pasta. So it was really important that we were in contact with someone from there who exactly knows what people need there. And I think it was amazing that there were places that people just cook big pots of meat with pasta and collect as much bowls as possible. So we were sending like metal bowls to Ukraine and just put it on the street.
It's something that I didn't know before, obviously working with the animals in Ukraine. So, in the UK and across other places in Europe, then we've got dried food and you have wet food and even raw food. But I'd never heard of these sort of mass sort of produced homemade meals for dogs. So yes. Yeah, it was certainly a learning curve for me.
Yes. It's still in some places in Poland, it's still popular, but not so much anymore. And I had no idea it's so popular in Ukraine. I don't know if you remember the lady in the refugee center that we tried to give like really good quality dog food. And she said like, no, maybe you have like any kind of can with meat, or for humans like can like a ham, or maybe you have some pasta that she can cook.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I remember there was a lady that had some dogs and, again, really high quality dried food that we'd managed to get over there in really good bags. She just sort of looked at like it was alien. And I initially didn't understand why she wasn't almost like, snatching it from me to be able to use for her dogs. But actually, it's because she'd been used to boiling up, bones and making a broth and all sorts.
Yes.
So, it was certainly a learning curve for me.
And I was amazed that in a situation like this, people still think that the dog needs the food they are used to, because it is really important. There would be nothing worse than having a sick dog now, or a dog with diarrhea in a situation like this. So I was amazed that people are still like thinking clear. The dog needs to get what they are used to eat. So there was a lady that we went to a butcher to buy her dog raw food, because she was like, my dogs are on raw diet. I cannot put them like now something else. And we were like, yeah, okay, we will just go to the butcher
and sort it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. What we'll do, we'll just stop the recording because we're running out of time to give, and then we'll come back onto the other one. So let me sort that.
Okay. But it's good because it didn't, like, maybe it would stop some people from helping, but it didn't. So like, it's a good thing. So now we are struggling with like a lot of animals that are still with us. And like, you know, probably they will stay in Poland for a really long time, especially that the adoption abroad are blocked. So we need to organize food and money for like vet treatments and things like that for them. So no one expect we will have them for so long in Poland. Everyone thought it will be like 2-3 months, and they will be adopted by, like, with different countries. They will go somewhere else. Someone will take of them, but it didn't happen with all of the animals. So we have them, and it's our responsibility to take care of them, like proper take care of them, and make sure we will do everything to find them a house, a home.
And your charity took in some dogs from Ukraine.
Yes, we are having 4 dogs from Ukraine now.
Okay.
So we took, on the beginning of the war, we decided not to take any dogs because we were curious what will happen and how we can help in like a month, how it will be. So because we are a small charity, we needed like to leave some place for the dogs, they will come. And it was good because after like few months of the war, maybe it was like after 6 or 7 weeks, there was a shelter that was that dogs caused neurological problems because of an explosion that happened very close to them. And we knew that's the dogs that we need to take. So we have DJ. He's very long now with us, like 4 months or 5. His name is DJ because of the explosions. His ear got hurt, and now he's like all the time making like
bobbing his head. So he's
yes. Okay. So now we are having 4 dogs from Ukraine, all with neurological problems caused by an explosion or maybe like crazy amount of fear. We don't know. But they are good. We are not looking for a new home for them because the treatment is costing really a lot of money. And also they are still having like X-rays and MRIs, and they need like a lot of visits with eye doctors, ear doctors, specialists. And we want to make sure that it will happen, that we will do everything to help them. And also we are trying to organize some help by some vets. They can learn on our dogs. They are in Poland, but they are from Ukraine, and go when it will be safe, of course, to Ukraine. And then they will know better like how to help because there is a lot of dogs. They have like ear problems now because of the explosions. So they can go there for 1-2 days and help in the shelters there.
Amazing. So I guess it's something that some people don't even think of, is that these animals that have been removed, or even the ones that still remain in Ukraine, are also massively affected by things that go on in a war zone, whether it be sights, sounds, smells, things like that. And actually, these animals have no idea what's going on. So it sounds like really valuable work for vets to go from Poland that have sort of looked into these dogs outside of Ukraine to go over there.
I'm a behaviorist, so it's also interesting for me because before no one talked about PSD syndrome at dogs.
PTSD, yeah.
Syndrome at dogs. And with Nella, one of the dog from Ukraine that is with one, and Shirociniec, she needs a lot of behavioral work.
Okay.
She's very scared now of tiny, tiny noises, quick movements. And we know from the volunteers from the shelter that she was not like this before. And I think like it's also a huge opportunity for us to learn how to help animals from war zone, like with behavioral problems, because they can feel they were also scared. They were also, they had no idea what's going on. So now it's
probably a problem that actually is not thought of as a priority, but perhaps it needs to be sort of thought of quite crucially for these animals and the potential for them to be rehomed, because we can all think of, you know, fixing injuries and broken legs. That's not a problem. We can fix that.
Yes.
But what can we do to fix what's going on in here for some of these animals that have been through so much?
Yes. So Brian, one of the other dogs from Ukraine, probably he tried to go out of a fence or something like this. So he learned how to jump very, very high.
Right.
So we actually built like a kind of roof. Because he's able to escape from everything, probably because he was in such a big panic. So now when he's feeling a little bit of fear or he don't know what is happening, he's just trying to escape, but he can really hurt himself with that. So, he's like, you need to make them feel safe again.
What advice, you know, if there was one piece of advice that you would give to somebody that has rehomed a dog from a war zone, and you know the temperament is one that's nervy and that sort of thing, what one bit of key advice would you give to that person?
Nose work.
Okay.
Nose work, depending of the dog, what kind of nose work it would be. But definitely nose work, because the dogs were born with the ability to find food. It's what they did the whole life, thousands of years. And we are somehow taking a little bit this away from the dogs by giving them food in a bowl. And also with walks, with everything, it's not like so interesting anymore for the dogs, because we are having a bowl or we are having like thousands of tricks we are trying to teach them. So they don't have the possibility to sniff long enough as they need. And we know that sniffing release endorphins, and we know that sniffing helps the dog to calm down. So any kind of nose work, I would advise any kind of nose work. Treat searching.
And people can do that at home, can't they? Really easily. They don't need any special equipment or to go anywhere specifically. It can be done in a garden or, you know, wherever they are.
Yes, we are trying now to create an online, so an ebook that will be delivered for free, how to help the dog to calm down after adoption. So it will be for everyone. They need something like any ideas how to help the dog in the house, so they don't need to worry. Because I don't think taking the dog for classes would be a good idea.
Yeah.
Because the dogs need about 3 weeks for cortisol to go down after a stressful situation. So I don't think that after the war, the transport that was not. So my dog, my private dog, when I took her first time to UK, she didn't pee for 26 hours. She was used to the crate, she was used to the car, but we were stressed and she could feel our fear. So she was afraid what's going on, why we are stressed, why we are in the car so long. And that, like, she was really stressed for the first few weeks we were here. So you can imagine now a dog that was never travel or travel only in like a car with owner or a small car, and now like the dogs were transported with like stranger people, stranger cars, sometimes without a crate, sometimes in a crate that they don't know. So it must be very stressful for the dogs. And then they're spending time in shelter. They don't know the people who are working there. They don't know the routine and everything. And then they are going to a new home. They don't know the people. They don't know the area. You don't know if the dog was living before in a village or in a city center with one person, with kids. older people. What was the routine of the dog? So it's so many triggers, so many things that are changing in the dog life, that it would be good if people will just give the dog time at home and try to do some nose work exercise, but at home.
It's what
so
we
they
would
can
call
also build
like
a bond.
Yeah, it's like what we would call a period of decompression. So where you
Yes.
literally just leave them to, safely to their own devices to bring that level
Yes.
down a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, and it would be like a good idea, instead of giving the dog the breakfast in a bowl, just like let them search for a breakfast. Like creating a snaffle mat is really easy. You need only like 1 hour and some piece of your old clothes, and you can do something really nice for the dog. So yeah, I think sniffing, definitely sniffing and nose work.
One thing that we do here in the summer, if it's too hot to take the dogs out for a walk, is that we'll get a load of frozen peas and throw them over our sort of quite large gravel driveway, so the dogs have to, sniff between the stones to try and find these peas.
Yes.
It keeps them busy, and actually the sort of energy that they release doing that sniffing is probably more than what they would do having a walk where they're not allowed
Yes.
to do that as much.
Yes, because during sniffing, they're also using the brain. So dog is getting the scent, recognizing them, is going to the brain. The dog is thinking of is the scent pleasant, unpleasant, safe, unsafe? Is it a human scent, dog, food? What I can do with this scent? So all the time they're processing the scent, and all the time they're using the brain. That's why nose work makes them feel calm, because it's a nice way to use your brain, because you don't get the exciting level of hormones in the brain. So the adrenaline level and cortisol level is not going up. So that is helping to keep them calm and like in a good mood. And first, what we need to change with dogs that we are adopting or that are in the shelter, or with the dogs that we took from Ukraine, is make sure they are in a good mood. Then everything will go easier. It's the same with us. When you are in a good mood, it's much easier to cope with new things and they like life challenges and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing advice, and I think people probably undervalue the importance of getting the dog to start thinking and using the brain more and tiring them out that way rather than throwing them all in a park. So yeah, really valuable.
Yeah, but Michele Muno, he's a scientist from Italy, and he's observing street dogs. So street dogs are sniffing about 6 hours a day.
Wow. Okay. That certainly explains a lot, doesn't it? And if you were to compare a dog that sleeps on the bed, has been bred in a house, they're very different. So I think personally it's something that is vital for these animals, because remember, a lot of these animals that have been brought over from Ukraine were originally street dogs. They aren't used to the washing machine. They don't necessarily want to sleep on the bed with somebody when somebody wants them to. So having something that you can think about their behavior and their welfare mentally is quite clearly the key for these dogs that have come from a war zone.
Also, the pipe that you create with food in Ukraine. Yeah. This is for nose work. Yeah. Because the dog needs to sniff, and then they will find the food.
Definitely. I'm doing a presentation at the conference on our drain pipe feeding stations, but to be fair, when we created them, I didn't even think that they'd be a kind of a scent work aspect to it. So that's good as well.
Because they're able to find because the dog don't know that a pipe is giving you food. They need to sniff it. So he can sniff the food, and then he will get it. And then he will try to be closer and closer to place with the pipes.
Yeah, definitely. That was part of our plan, is to keep like a concentrated area for these dogs to be able to recognize food.
And definitely it will work. Definitely it will work, because street dogs are also staying in a place where they can get easy food without like sniff food, but without having other predators next to them.
Yeah, definitely. I think the idea, feeding the street animals however way you can is obviously brilliant, but dumping a bag of 10 kilos of dry dog food on the floor, and it's a bit of a free-for-all, it's probably never going to be great for welfare apart from the food, is it? So yeah, it's great to hear that you think that it will benefit them in more ways than just feed. So that's great.
Yes.
So,
also, it will help if a dog will starve or something. They will be not able to eat very quick.
Yeah.
So it's also like a good
prevents things like bloat and
Yeah.
other health. Yeah. You know, my dogs aren't starved, and I can guarantee have never been starved, but they would gobble everything if there was a 10 kilo bag of dog food on the floor. So yeah, okay. So I guess coming back to the work in Ukraine then with the animals. So knowing what you know now about, you know, we're now months and months into this war, which I never thought we'd be at, to be honest. I think we probably underestimated the timescales for this. So knowing what you know now and having seen and worked with the dogs that have come out of Ukraine and also the people, is there anything that you would change about what we've done or what we could do for Ukraine and the animals?
Yes, actually a lot of things.
Okay.
So now, after the first weekend we were there, the next weekend we came, we were already better prepared, like with the suppliers back. Yeah, the first weekend we were like everyone, we brought food in crazy amount of like bags, and like they were big, and I never thought that people will be not able to carry it. Also the food that we bought in a can, it was like the huge can, because I thought like, yeah, they need to have as much as possible.
Yeah.
And I didn't thought that someone is already walking 3 days with a suitcase and a dog, and then you will give them like 10 extra kilo of dog food, and they will need to carry that for the next 3 days.
And also, I didn't realise or even think that how are these people going to spoon out dog food from a tin can?
Oh, yeah, like bowl. And the first time I went there, I didn't take any single bowl. No, I didn't thought like about things like that. So yes, because of all the experience, I would change actually a lot of things. And I will go to my notes because I wrote it down. So I will create much more leaflets than we did, because we thought internet is the best solution, and it was not. Not everyone is using internet. Not everyone knew that they can get free internet in Poland. On the beginning, there was no free internet. And also the companies, they can deliver internet. Takes them also a while to provide such help. So as much leaflets as possible. Leaflets that are translated into Ukraine. Because there was like some leaflets in other languages. And we thought, yeah, definitely they know English or like they know Polish. We are so close to each other. But no, because you are thinking that only young people are escaping, and it's not the truth. So one couple that we met on the border in Medica, it was a couple, or older couple, and the children were in Denmark. And they were traveling from Denmark to Medica to pick them up. But the people at the same time were traveling from Ukraine to meet them like in halfway. And because no one from us is speaking Ukraine, there was like such a huge misunderstanding that almost the people were in the bus. Almost we sent the people in the bus to Warsaw.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because they knew only 3 big cities in Poland, so they were saying all the time like Warsaw, Krakow, Wrocław, and there was just a bus coming to Warsaw. So we were like, yeah, they can go to Warsaw, but no, that was the 3 cities that the son also knew. And he was like trying to reach any of the city, but he was on the way. So like, thanks, there was someone who can speak Ukrainian. We were managed to fix it, and like make sure the people are going to Wrocław and will meet the son as soon as possible. And then we wrote a message to the son on like Facebook, on Messenger, and they were safety there. So no, you don't expect that. Not everyone has a cell phone. Not everyone knows internet. No, everyone know how Google Maps work and things like that. You don't think that in other countries things like that are not working or not are not available.
Also, one thing I learned is that Google Translate has massive limitations in terms of what it translates. It was awful. I remember we did one translation and we were looking bizarrely at like cream for a cow's udders, you know, for soothing lotion. And this translation came back, which we were just absolutely like laughing at, because it came back as udder mascara. So actual mascara that you'd put on your eyelashes.
Yeah.
Like that. So it was just incredible to see how false it could be. So let alone trying to translate with Ukrainians when Google Translate comes up with other mascara. So
yeah. So definitely leaflets and information as much as possible, as soon as possible. So it will be good to create like a work for someone that will just look for information and be able to provide all this information, like an information center or something like this. But not again, someone who is speaking Ukrainian. So that would be very important. I would create as much forms as possible for people they traveling with dogs. So they know what they can expect, how to organize the food, vet help, and everything like this. So any kind of forms that you can contact back these people, because that was like a huge problem for us, that we were able to tell them like go to Wrocław, because on the train station in Wrocław our friends were given like also food and were also able to help. But what if the person was going to like a small city or a small village? We were losing like the contact with this person. So that was difficult. Definitely I would contact immediately big charities and try to organize as much supplies as possible, because the people that are there, the small charities, I have the feeling that they knew what the people need, where people need crates, where people need dog food, dog supplies back, what kind of help, transport, like everything. But they just didn't have the source to do it. So our charity, without the help of your charity, without the help of other charities we met there, and then you knew different charities and you were able to ask, it wouldn't be impossible to help this amount of people if you are not open to work with other charities. So definitely,
I guess the key message on that is partnership working, isn't it? So we almost need the funding from big charities, which I know we at one point we got from I4, didn't we? When we purchased the 100 cat carriers or the
Today I would write definitely an email to charities in different countries just to organize, I don't know, a Zoom meeting or something like this and say like, look, we know what they need. We can tell you we were there. Let's look what we can do all together, who can organize what, because you don't need to be there to help. This is something what I also learned. You really don't need to be there to help. But yeah, it's important to like work together. Definitely, I would also organize place where dogs could stay after they cross the border, and a place where people can stay with dogs after they cross the border, because there was a refugee center, but it was difficult for a lot of dogs to stay there. So like I'm a dog owner, so when it's difficult for my dog, it's making my stress level high. So definitely I would help with something like this and organize like pet sitters, pet workers. They can take care for 1-2 days of the dog, so the people can just sleep and get rest. And this is something what we try to organize. So the girls, they were on Lviv train station. They knew that to tell everyone who is traveling with a dog, go to Medica, because in Medica there is a big blue tent with a lot of help. And there are people, they will definitely help you whatever you need. But what was very painful even to watch was people with dogs, or like 5 dogs, 4 dogs, cats with buckets standing, and they had no idea what to do. Now where to get a bag for the dog, where to get a crate. That was the worst. Like I never thought they will be needed so much crates. So definitely now, if there will be a war in a different country, what we hope it will never happen, I will organize as much crates as possible. That would be the first thing what I would organize. Crates, bowls, and food in small amount of packet.
I think it's probably safe to say that for everybody, this has been a massive learning curve, hasn't it, in respect of what age you need, who needs it, and also the effects mentally on the animals that are in Ukraine and are leaving, as well as the people. So, without the small charities like us, and the ones on the conference later on as well, it's so vital that we keep the support up, because ultimately the war in Ukraine gets lower and lower in terms of news outlets and what's in the press, and you don't necessarily hear about it every hour of every day now, but it's still going on.
Yes, it's still going on, and a lot of because I'm still having contact with people that we brought from Medica, or we helped them somehow, or organize a place to stay in Poland, because of course it's easier for me because my parents live in Poland and I have a lot of friends there. We are still in contact with the people. Some people gave up and went back to Ukraine. Mm-hmm. Some people are really running out of money in Poland, and they really need a lot of support now, different way of support for the dogs or cats. They struggled with problems that we are struggling every day as pet owners. Where to walk the dog, where to go to the vet, mm-hmm. Meds problems, vaccination, like everything what everyone from us knows from daily life with a dog.
Mm-hmm. But we have the benefit of generally speaking the language of the country that we're in, I guess, and it must be twice as hard when you're in a country that you don't speak the language of.
Yes, and I don't think a lot of the refugees know that in Wrocław, for example, because it's my city, so it's like easy. There are a Ukrainian vet that is trying to help a lot of people. Okay. Because of course of the language barrier, it's very difficult. I know, like I'm in UK, and my first visit of my dog in UK at the vet, where the rules are completely different. Yeah. We don't have insurance in Poland. We don't have, like, we are going to any vet. You don't need to have an appointment. Like, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Was very stressful. So I'm guessing for those people, it's much more stressful. And I also think we need to think about a long-term help for dogs. They are still in Ukraine and they need any kind of medical help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. From me, and I guess from everybody that has anything to do with the animals of Ukraine, thank you so much for the work that you've done, since February and you're still doing today, because as you've said, without the partnership working, without the smaller charities coming together, I don't think we could have achieved so far what we have achieved for these animals and animal welfare.
Definitely. And so many private people helped as well. Mm-hmm. With delivering things, with helping, with letting us know that someone needs dog food.
Yeah.
Some of the people were there's a family in a village next to Wrocław. They have 4 dogs, 4 German Shepherds. Mm-hmm. And of course they cannot afford the food for them, because they need to rent a flat, because they need to find a job, like buy new stuff, because they are coming often with 1 suitcase. So it's important that our charity is, that someone will let us know that there is a family like this, and we are able to give them the food every month. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's really important, like, to inform people that there is someone in need, what they need, because definitely there is someone who can help.
Definitely. And to keep talking, we talk often, but there's other charities that have obviously got other work that they do as well. So I think it's really important that we all keep talking, we all keep telling each other what the need is and where that need is required and things like that, because for as long as there is a need, it's vital, isn't it?
Yes, even if all you can do is stay for 2 hours with someone dog when they will try to find a job, it's a huge help.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, is there anything else that you think we haven't discussed, or that you'd like to say about your work and the animals of Ukraine, Oksana?
No, I think it's everything. I really would like to thank everyone who helped us to be able to help, because we are a very small charity. And I think all the people we met on the border, they came with dogs. They are very, very brave, or with cats, with other pets, because they were fighting for their life, escaping in stress, and they were still thinking about their animals. And for me, it's heartbreaking, because it's really lovely, and I think the people are heroes, and they deserve our help when they are here. And the people who stay there with animals, running shelters and other places, they also deserve our help.
Absolutely. Brilliant. Thanks so much, Roxana. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Wow, great to hear what happened from Poland. Thank you so much to Roxana for everything that you've done and for the interview and for the interviewer there. Kate, brilliant job interviewing. So much information. Wonderful video to watch and listen to. We will be uploading that to Nature Watch Facebook channel, to the YouTube channel. If you want to watch again, if you've missed anything, that would be great. We'd like to challenge ourselves with the presentations. We obviously been streaming, thanks to the translators on YouTube, in Ukrainian, in English, and Romanian. We've got another challenge now, but it's definitely worth it. We're going to listen to Vangelis Drivas, a police officer and Greek clinical psychologist. He works for the health department of the Hellenic, the Greek police, in the psychological support of Greek police officers. I'm not going to go through too much, but he's graduated from the Police Academy, from the psychological department of the Pantheon University. He's a Master of Science in Clinical and Community Psychology from the University of East London. His CV keeps going on and on and on. He's attended a lot of educational programs and trainings, and he's an expert in forensic psychology, bullying, criminology, animal welfare, and dogs' cognition and emotion, as well as criminal motivation. So this is going to be a very, very full presentation. Again, we will give you access to it. He's very, very keen on social media, and I think at the beginning of the presentation, he will show you his Facebook, his Report Animal Abuse website. Please follow him. You'll find tons of information helpful for tackling animal abuse, for tackling criminals, preventing crime in the community. If I can switch the video over now, thanks, and we will hear from Vangelis.
Okay.
I hope you have the best subtitles to understand what I'm saying. After this presentation, do not hesitate to contact me to my social media, which I present at the end of this presentation, and ask me anything you want or you didn't understand. So, the topic of this presentation is the investigation of association between animal abuse and cruelty and interpersonal violence, the criminal psychological profile. So, I start presenting in Greek. Το θέμα μας εδώ είναι η συσχέτιση ανάμεσα στη βιαιότητα ζώων και τη διαπροσωπική βία, όπως είπαμε. Στην ουσία διερευνούμε αν υπάρχει αυτή η συσχέτιση, δεν παίρνουμε κάτι ως δεδομένο και στο τέλος αυτής της παρουσίασης με μια επεξεργασία όλων των ευρημάτων από τις έρευνες που υπάρχουν από το 1961 περίπου έως και το 2022, συνθέτω δηλαδή όλα τα ευρήματα για να φτιάξω ένα εγκληματικό, ψυχολογικό προφίλ όσων κακοποιούν ζώα. Αυτό θα το δούμε στο τέλος. Όλα όσα σας αναφέρω σήμερα βασίζονται όχι στις δικές μου πεποιθήσεις και στη δικιά μου γνώμη, αλλά σε τουλάχιστον 150 έρευνες υπάρχουν τα τελευταία 50 με 60 χρόνια σε ερευνητικές μελέτες και έχουν δημοσιευτεί σε διάφορες επιστημονικές βάσεις δεδομένων. Όλα αυτά υπάρχουν επίσης δημοσιευμένα στη μοναδική μελέτη που υπάρχει στην Ελλάδα.
Починаючи говорити про жорстокі поводження з тваринами, ми повинні визнати, що тварина може зазнати жорстокого поводження. Згідно з науковими дослідженнями та літературою, тварини здатні відчувати фізичний біль будь-якими способами, а деякі пошкодження здаються ударами ніг та рук, кінцівками людини або якимось предметом. Вони мають здатність відчувати як фізичний, так і психічний біль. Таким чином, тварини в основному мають емоційну та когнітивну здатність. Тобто вони сприймають і передають свої емоції по-своєму унікальним способом.
Κάποια βλάβη, είτε με χτύπημα, είτε με κάψιμο, είτε με πυροβολισμό, με τα άκρα δηλαδή του ανθρώπου ή με κάποιο αντικείμενο. Επίσης, μπορούν να βιώσουν συναισθηματικό και ψυχικό πόνο, δηλαδή να βιώσουν συναισθήματα όπως άγχος, δυσφορία, αγωνία, φόβο, τρόμο και ούτω καθεξής και τα υπόλοιπα συναισθήματα. Η πλειοψηφία βέβαια των ερευνών είναι σε θηλαστικά, αλλά υπάρχουν αρκετές έρευνες και σε λοιπά είδη ότι διαθέτουν την ικανότητα να βιώσουν και σωματικό πόνο, αλλά και ψυχικό. Επομένως, τα ζώα διαθέτουν και κυρίως τα θηλαστικά συναισθηματική και γνωστική ικανότητα, δηλαδή αντιλαμβάνονται και δείχνουν τα συναισθήματά τους με το δικό τους μοναδικό τρόπο, αλλά σκέφτονται και με το δικό τους μοναδικό τρόπο, χωρίς όμως να κάνουν απαραίτητα τους ανθρώπινους πολύπλοκους και σύνθετους συλλογισμούς. Αυτό θα ήταν και αυτό που λέμε εξανθρωπισμός των ζώων, κάτι το οποίο υποτιμά τα ίδια τα ζώα. Έχουν άλλες δυνατότητες που οι άνθρωποι επίσης δεν έχουν. Αποδεχόμενοι αυτό ακριβώς που είπαμε, ότι τα ζώα διαθέτουν την ικανότητα για σωματικό και ψυχικό πόνο, αλλά και την ικανότητα να σκέφτονται και να συναισθάνονται, προχωράμε στα υπόλοιπα. Εδώ βλέπουμε κάποιες φωτογραφίες ενός σκύλου για το πώς νιώθουν τα ζώα. Παίρνοντας παράδειγμα δηλαδή αυτό το σκύλο, βλέπουμε εδώ πάνω αριστερά ότι είναι φοβισμένος, στη μέση ότι είναι χαρούμενος, εδώ ότι είναι επιφυλακτικός και φοβισμένος και τρομαγμένος, φοβισμένος μπορώ να πω, χαρούμενος και εδώ τρομοκρατημένος. Επίσης μπορούμε να δούμε αν σκέφτονται τα ζώα. Εδώ έχω πάρει από 2 έρευνες αυτό τον χιμπατζή, ο οποίος προσπαθεί με διάφορους τρόπους να πάρει την τροφή από αυτές τις σωλήνες που με νερό, ρίχνοντας μέσα νερό ή κινώντας τη μεταλλική ράβδο στην δεύτερη εικόνα, προσπαθεί να βγάλει τον σπόρο και να τον φάει. Άρα όλο αυτό το έχει επεξεργαστεί με κάποιον τρόπο και θέλει να βγάλει την τροφή με αυτόν τον τρόπο που σκέφτηκε. Στην Ελλάδα, σύμφωνα με αυτόν τον, με όλα αυτά που συζητούμε, ο ορισμός της κακοποίησης ζώων δεν υπάρχει.
У Греції, відповідно, беручи до уваги те, що ми обговорюємо, визначення жорстокого поводження з тваринами не існує, як говориться в міжнародних наукових дослідженнях в науковій літературі. Не існує визначень. Загалом єдине універсальне визначення, яке найчастіше зустрічається в дослідженнях, полягає в тому, що насильство над тваринами соціально неприйнятною поведінкою є соціально неприйнятною поведінкою, яка також викликає біль і страждання. Визначення особливо цікаве для мене, тому що воно, ймовірно, також викликає
περιορισμούς, είναι γενικόλογος, αλλά και όχι καθολικά αποδεκτός. Για να δούμε τι ακριβώς. 4 λέξεις παίζουν σημασία εδώ, μεγάλη σημασία, ότι κακοποίηση ζώων λέει ο ορισμός ότι είναι όλες οι κοινωνικά μη αποδεκτές συμπεριφορές. Μάλιστα.
Тому що воно, ймовірно, викликає занепокоєння через деякі обмеження, є загальним, але не загальновизнаним. Це говорить нам про те, що жорстоке поводження з тваринами не повинно мати універсального змісту для всіх. Це залежить від суспільства до суспільства. Тобто те, що є прийнятним чи неприйнятним у Греції, не означає, що це саме є в Ефіопії, Єгипті або інших країнах.
Hello, apologies for that. We've had a couple of issues, obviously, in relation to translation. The Ukrainian seems to be working fine. And I think the Romanian is working fine. What we can't hear is the English translation. I think there's probably a problem with the English channel. Just bear with us while we just try and solve a couple of these issues.
Сталося віконечко. Оце. Та воно не нажимається.
There is work going on behind the scenes to try and resolve some of the technical and translation issues.
Зараз намагаються колеги вирішити технічні питання.
Yeah, one of the Ukraine translations is translating into English. So Sarah's just put a message in the chat. For those that haven't heard Sarah's initial conversation on the first day, Sarah is the Chief Executive of Nature Watch Foundation. So she's put some comments in there in relation to World Animal Day. On the 4th of October, which comes around faster and faster each year, I think. Nature Watch is sort of guardian of World Animal Days, do an incredible amount of work on social media, particularly. But with all the countries around the world. I'm now told the translation seems to be fine. So do we want to start and continue where we are? What we will do, this is another video that we will upload to social media, and Vagelis will probably share too, in case you've missed anything so far with all the different languages on it. Okay, if we're happy we've got the translation, should we start the video again? Thank you for your patience.
Από κοινωνία σε κοινωνία διαφέρει. Δηλαδή αυτό που είναι αποδεκτό ή μη αποδεκτό στην Ελλάδα δεν σημαίνει ότι είναι το ίδιο και στην Αιθιοπία, στην Αίγυπτο, στη Γερμανία, στη Σουηδία ή στη ΣΥΠΑ ή και στην Κίνα. Έχουμε το κοινωνικό στοιχείο. Βλέπουμε ότι η κακοποίηση ζώων πάντα θα γίνεται εκούσια. Εδώ πάλι εγώ θα διαφωνήσω.
So, just to mention, We had a new law accepted in 2021 that has mentioned the torture and the killing of animals in a felony. It does not have a definition of animal abuse, but approaches it rather a limitation. Also, the Greek law incorporates the 5 universal principles, the 5 rules for the welfare of animals, namely freedom from hunger and thirst, freedom from unnecessary suffering and stress, freedom from pain, injury, and disease, freedom from fear and distress, and the freedom to express normal behavior. So the researchers often mention these freedoms to understand that abuse is not linear, nor is it one thing, it is a huge spectrum. And it depends on how serious, how intense is the act of abuse and neglect, hit of neglect, duration, for how long it happens, and the damage that will be caused by that action or neglect. Therefore, 3 elements make up what we mean by abuse: the intensity of the act, the chronicity of the act, and the damage that will be caused to the animal. I won't stay long on this. It is something that each of us could perceive. We have 2 huge levels of abuse. We have the physical level, crimes, shootings, poisonings, and on the physical level, there is the passive abuse. A person does not provide a proper accommodation for the animal exposed to the weather conditions, rain, heat, show. This applies to animals living on balconies, rooftops, farms, permanently chained, not cleaned, does not walk. An animal such as the dog, for example, who needs the daily exercise, the daily walk, food and water, is dirty. A person does not take care sufficiently of his body, and let's not forget that some breeds of dogs require frequent combing or cutting their nails to be able to survive. We have seen many such cases of animal abuse when you can't see the animal, it's just a big ball of hair. We also won't talk about other forms of abuse and what they are. For example, dog fighting, dog parking, sexual abuse, animal husbandry, zoophilia. And in Greece, we have 2 more specific forms, mainly in the Aegean Islands, disporides. And this group of violence is called cyclides, but also in other parts of Greece, such as cattle grazing. In cattle and sheep pasture, their legs are tied to the head with a rope so that the animals don't jump, don't make dangerous kicks, don't eat trees, don't destroy property, which is abuse. We have the barrel dogs, which are in isolated places, so they are like prisoners and may be taken care of by the strangers from different places, but they stay in barrels for that, and they are called barrel dogs, old stray dogs. We have the training of the animal causing pain in a punitive way. I mean, the illegal trade and sale of animals and the abandonment. That is to say, from where it is dominated, the owner makes it stray and abandons it. The second big level of abuse is the emotional one. Too many researchers for many years report the emotional level of abuse. It is richly emotional and inappropriate challenge, instilling fear, terror, anxiety, and threat of physical contact. The physical contact does not exist. If we only talk about it, of course, many times physical level and emotional level occur simultaneously. At the same time, at the expense of an animal, here we mean only shouting or constant screaming at an animal, or to scare an animal, to make it adapt to what we want. And this could mean that abuse in the Greek law from 2021 is considered according to the law, it is considered the obligation of the owner of a companion animal to ensure that the animal's needs to have sufficient contact with the same or another human, not to live in a state of loneliness, to preserve his mental health are met.
Το έχει μόνιμα σε μπαλκόνια, τα γράμμες, ή σε αγροκτήματα, το έχει μόνιμα αλυσοδεμένο, οι χώροι δεν είναι καθαροί και στεγνοί,
I have said,
όπως ο σκύλος, για
the animals sometimes lived in balconies, in rooftops, etc.
Ας μην ξεχνάμε ότι ορισμένες φυλές σκύλων έτσι απαιτούν συχνό χτένισμα ή και κούρεμα και κόψιμο των νυχιών τους για να μπορέσουν να επιβιώσουν. Έχουμε δει πολλές τέτοιες περιπτώσεις κακοποίησης όπου τα ζώα από την τόση τρίχα δεν φαίνονται. Φαίνεται ένα μεγάλο κουβάρι από τρίχα. Έχουμε και υπόλοιπες μορφές κακοποίησης και κακομεταχείρισης, όπως είναι, για παράδειγμα, οι
The Greek
κοινομαχίες.
law incorporates 5 universal principles, 5 rules for the welfare of animals, namely freedom, from hunger and thirst, freedom from unnecessary suffering and stress, freedom from pain and disease, freedom from fear and distress.
Αλλά και σε άλλα μέρη της Ελλάδας, όπως είναι το παστούρωμα, δηλαδή στα αβοειδή, στα εγωπρόβατα δηλαδή, τα άκρα τους δένονται με το κεφάλι, με σκηνή, έτσι ώστε τα ζώα να μην χοροπηδούν, να μην κάνουν επικίνδυνα λακτίσματα, να μην τρώνε δέντρα, να μην καταστρέφουν ιδιοκτησίες, το οποίο όμως είναι κακοποίηση. Επίσης έχουμε τα βαρελόσκυλα, σκυλιά που είναι σε απομονωμένες μεριές, έτσι ώστε να λειτουργούν σαν φύλακες και να φροντίζουν ίσως την μη διέλευση αγνώστων από διάφορα σημεία, αλλά αυτά μένουν μέσα σε βαρέλια.
The second big level of abuse is the emotional one. Too many researchers for many years report this emotional level of abuse. It is richly emotional and inappropriate challenge, instilling fear, terror, anxiety, and threat of physical contact. The physical contact does not exist. If we only talk about it, of course,
I just want to apologise again. We've had obviously other technical issues, particularly with the English translation. I think the English translation is now working properly on the English channel. Romanian seems to be working on the Romanian channel. The Ukrainian channel seems to be playing Greek. I think that's right. If anybody knows differently, please let me know who's listening in. So we will continue with this. And hopefully we'll get as much information out as we can. And I'll reiterate, we will go back to the translation and we will be sending this video out with the proper translation as soon as we possibly can. Do you want to play again and we will continue? Thank you.
We have the training of the animal causing pain in a punitive way. I mean the illegal trade and sale of animals and the abandonment. That is to say, from where it is dominated, the owner makes it stray and abandons it. The second big level of abuse is the emotional one. Too many researchers for many years report this emotional level of abuse. It is richly emotional and inappropriate challenge, instilling fear, terror, anxiety, and threat of physical contact. The physical contact does not exist. If we only talk about it, of course, many times physical level and emotional level occur simultaneously. At the same time, at the expense of an animal, here we mean only shouting or constant screaming at an animal to scare an animal or to make it adapt to what we want. And this could mean that abuse in the Greek law from 2021 is considered the obligation of the owner of a companion animal to ensure that the animal needs to have sufficient contact with the same or another human, not to leave it in a state of loneliness, to preserve the mental health of the animal. We see that the Greek legislation took into account everything reported by the international scientific researchers. I think it played an important role in assuming that the disclaimer exists and should be taken into account. Unfortunately, in Greek law, there are no details, so it is difficult to certify that the emotional level of animals is happening. Studies that I mentioned to you mentioned as particular forms of abuse when a person uses his limbs to hurt. I mean, the person kicks the animal, beats the animal, and shoots the animal. It has been shown that in cases where there has been choking and shooting, there is ground for repeated abuse. Also, the children who had started at an early age, who had started abusing animals at an early age, seems that the first form of abuse was serious. Also, it is the form of abuse through hitting. if the child does not get negative reaction from adults and the child thinks it's good, so he can continue this behavioral conduct without emotional involvement that he's going to do something bad. Sexual abuse also, and killing animals in early childhood and drowning animals were significant predictive factors for later adulthood. It hasn't been shown that children were sexually abused, but so if there was no psychological psychiatric evaluation and intervention to demonstrate it. Greek law has a provision for temporary or permanent imprisonment, but this is done later in court. It can also be assessed by the police. That is, the moment they see a danger, they can take the animal away, report this danger. Here we see a mosaic of various forms of abuse, mainly from Greek cases. Talking about various animal issues in Greece, we see animal burnings, we see neglected animals, we see holding of animals, when many animals gather together. I was telling you before, we were talking about the physical care of an animal. You see the cases when the animal is neglected, when the animal is not taken care of, and you see that the animal is full of hair. The animal looks like a ball of hair, actually. Here in the middle down below, you will see the animal forum. Maybe some of you know it is about 2018. Unfortunately, in this blog, which was a forum for animal lovers, there were also results related to Greece. Animal abuse does not concern a geographical area. It only concerns the whole world, the whole planet, all countries present all over the world. It is not only about animal lovers, it is a social issue, as we will see below and understand. Unfortunately, there are still these resources not as open as there was a forum, but unfortunately, the cases of abuse are present. Unfortunately, the cruelty to animals is there, and sometimes it is even more hidden. So you see the photos of the animals that have been neglected, that have not been taken care of, and you can see the cases of burnings, you can see the holding of animals, you can see that you practically do not see the animal, but you see just the hair of the animal. The animal looks like a big ball of hair, which was not cut in a proper way, which we see anorexic animals. And you also see cases of very thin animals that have not been fed properly. Here, just in the middle below, you see the information from the Animal Forum. Maybe some of you know it. It took place in 2018. It was a blog which was a forum for those who love animals, and they have produced the results about Greece. You understand that animal abuse is not only about certain geographical area. Animal abuse happens all over the world in different countries. These are not only animal lovers who raise the point. It is also a social issue, as we see below. And unfortunately, the resources are not as open as they were open in the forum. Unfortunately, these cases still exist. Let's go to the heart of this presentation, the preface. This is necessary. Here we shall talk about animal abuse, animal cruelty. It begins to be distant. It becomes domestic, it becomes interpersonal. So animal cruelty shows relation between domestic and interpersonal violence. We'll discuss this correlation. We'll review interpersonal violence. We will see what is animal abuse and its relation to interpersonal violence, how they are connected. I will try not to pay too much time. Anyway, this presentation is a huge study that you can read in written form. Unfortunately, so far it is available in Greek. Those of you who know Greek, efforts are being made by me to publish it in English as well. And it is a big study, a big research. It is 40 pages. And more, for the first time, the association of these two elements of interpersonal violence and animal abuse was made a long time ago in psychiatric literature by the French psychiatrist Philippe Pinel. Here we have to separate a little. What does animal abuse mean? What does animal cruelty mean? Animal property abuse. When we talk about abuse, we should keep in mind what we are talking about. This is a huge umbrella of human antisocial and abusive behaviors. In other words, animal abuse can also include behaviors that are not ethical, and they are not punished by the law. It means anything that is immoral does not mean that it is also illegal. However, it constitutes another mental characteristic and behavioral characteristic, which is more complex, more productive, more multifactorial. A single element is not decisive to say that a person is going to become abuser in future. And that is because the things explained below are more complex. They are more social and related to social, cultural, and developmental issues. Those temperamental genetic factors that contribute to the violence characterizations justify the behavior, as we said, characterize the animal abuse. Or is it violence because these are criminals and they're criminally mentally ill? Violence is the result and it is not the logical factor. What I'm trying to say is abuse and violence in the majority of cases, it does not always happen, but this percentage is so small that it has been shown that most perpetrators of violence are men. Women are almost equally likely to be violent towards animals. Violence does not depend on social, cultural, or economic context. There is no such rule that is documented with validity and reliability. Let's see first what happens to children and teenagers, and then see what happens to adults. About 1% of minor teenage children will show violence towards animals and pets. Mostly pets, but also the animals in general that are not included in the surveys. When we mean pets, we mean like dogs and cats. Animals are the friends in trouble for children, and these are child victims who have been abused in the past, who have been abused in their families. They are witnesses. They are children who saw the brutality. We said that a quarter of the children, of small children and teenagers, and these are child victims who have been abused, who have suffered violence in the past, in their families, for example, and we only seen repeated abuse of animals in childhood and adolescence. But also there are continuous abuse of family environment. And this creates a fertile ground. So when these children become teenagers and teenagers become adults, they display one, they display cruelty towards people and other animals. Psychologically, these children have empathic deficit. They have low emotional impact. What would affect the average person emotionally does not affect these children. They are distinguished by analgesia. They may not perceive pain like other people, and they may suffer from some mental disorder. Mainly boys outnumber girls by a ratio of 2 to 1 or 3 to 1 if we are talking about boys and girls. Those who abuse animals are also distinguished by other behaviors and many external problems such as aggression, vandalism, arson, while girls are more submissive, have internalized problems such as depression, psychological withdrawal, and they may suffer from some mental disorder. Mainly boys are more than girls with a ratio of 2 to 1 or 3 to 1. All violence in their home or mental disorder that has been found can be related to animal abuse, but this does not mean that any child who abuses an animal has a mental disorder. However, it was found that many of them may develop conduct disorder, that is, children who are aggressive towards people and animals, who destroy property, who steal, who break important rules, appear approximately at the age of 15. Any child with a conduct disorder can turn their life around. Um, and it means a quarter of such children with animal abuse or conduct disorders are mostly treatable. They also abuse animals. The behavior disorder is mostly under treatment. The parents think that their child did such an abusive behavior towards an animal, and the child is still a child and should not be treated. So they overlook that they have to treat it therapeutically, and it has been seen that conduct disorder is not properly treated in adulthood. And it leads to the fact that such people become antisocial persons. As for adults now, and especially men, they unconsciously abuse people because they have been abused themselves in the past as children. Among people incarcerated for crimes such as theft or drugs, 2/5 of those incarcerated for personal assaults, rape and murder, sexual abuse, physical abuse of children, these are people with history of violence over people. Mainly it was violence, mostly experienced in childhood. We see here that there is the connection. These people who commit these crimes in adult life have in the past come into contact with violence. They choose being cruel towards people and animals. Here is an important finding from a study conducted in 2021. Having just one animal in a family leads to the fact that victims will be able to say more about the abuse in relation to them. In families where there was domestic violence but no pet, episodes of violence proceeded until the police were called, until the victim called the police. And where there was a pet, these cases were preceded by about 20 and 40 previous episodes of violence. What does this mean in practice? That victims are mostly women. They consider the animal to be a member of the family, and the threats they received from their husbands that they will kill and make the animal disappear or make harm to the animal, therefore they were just blackmailing the women, and the women were not leaving them. It already worked for women out of fear. They didn't leave the house, and therefore they were subject to even more violence. 88% of families where there was child abuse indicated that there was pet abuse, while at the same time these children were abused, and 20% of them also abused the pet. Women are equally likely to commit violence. There are no reliable and valid data to say that men are more likely to commit violence. Of course, this also depends on the size of the population. Men's prisons and not so much women's prisons have been approached. So that conclusions can be drawn over the last few years, something that probably is changing with time. So let us stick to the motives, because the motive probably does not mean the reason that a person abuses. The motive is that in the specific period of time or shortly before the violent act, the abusive act applies to the person and what is done. It applies to the individual, and we are talking about strengthening of this sense of self-efficacy, is what is we call self-efficacy in English. Many people live a chaotic life. They don't succeed, and by abusing an animal, they change that feeling to exercise a control over an animal. That is, to discipline an animal or to impose punishment on it for something the animal has done. We also are told about partners who are in emotionally abusive relations. Surveys showed that 48% of abused women stayed in the relationship out of fear for an animal. So we see that some data are valid and reliable, and some data are repeated in many researches. And it is not the animal as a place in such phases. The animal is unfortunately the victim. It is the means for revenge. It is the means to transfer hostility many times from a person to an animal. For example, a neighbor has some arguments with us and poisons our animals that may be outside. Also, we have seen many animal training in a punitive way, like electric collars were used in order to strengthen personal aggression. And the same activities later may be practiced on people. Phobias and prejudices, such as the black cat, the pit bull, snakes are abused more for action and entertainment, and it is caused by the influence of alcohol, different other substances, and the curiosity just to show to peers that this person, the teenager, has courage to do it. And many times, animal abuse is conducted while initiation ceremony in a group. I want to mention here a finding regarding animal abuse and pet abuse as a form of family violence. In American states, in 36 states of the US, in Washington and Puerto Rico, pet abuse is considered as domestic violence. It means it is not necessary that the person has been abused, and only then the police will become aware of pet abuse. According to Greek authorities, a domestic violence case file was we have some very important findings about the association of domestic violence and two trends related to the victims of domestic violence. For example, there were victims of domestic violence who had a pet, and they received threats to harm the animal from 12 to 75% of cases. The animal was physically harmed, neglected, or killed in 23 among 77%, where there were threats and abuse, together in 21% out of 89%. Also, in 47.3% of the participants, there was an escalation of abusive behavior towards both animals and people. That is, we see that as the increase when someone remains a victim of domestic violence in the relationship. The intensity increases, and I remind you, the spectrum of abuse that I had mentioned at the beginning, and we are talking about intensity and temporality and damaged cause. From 41 to 52% of men who have been arrested for domestic violence at least once abused a pet. 17% of women who have been imprisoned had been cruel to family animal. Women also abuse pets within a relationship. There was also a survey of students, and it showed that at the same time the pet was also abused while there was domestic violence. Other people in the family were also abused. Unfortunately, you cannot ask me here, but do not hesitate to send me questions on the social media that I will list below. Most of the mental disorders that have been associated with abuse are antisocial personality disorders, are psychopathic disorders related to addiction and drug and alcohol dependence. Such animal holding individuals are not able to regulate emotion. They cannot suppress impulses or they suppress their emotions for a long time. But they had violence in early childhood and adolescence, and because of all this, they have formed some beliefs about abuse, that abuse exists, that a slap does not necessarily mean violence. The fact that it is permissible to spank a child when it is young is considered not bad. All this needs thinking. Unfortunately, I can't go and stay longer because the time will also end. Abusers, animal abuse, and the cognitive part of the perpetrators, if we may say, are the object of psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and schemotherapy, which I also apply in psychotherapy sessions to help people realize what the harm may cause. But as you understand, only when the person himself wants to be helped, it works. Psychotherapy cannot be imposed on anyone, because if it is imposed, we don't get the desired results. The person himself does not want it. In this case, it won't help. I will talk about the profile of the perpetrators to make a summary that someone could ask us. As I have said, psychotherapy cannot be something that you forcefully offer on a person. Because if you do it in a coercive way, you won't be able to get the result you want. In case the person doesn't accept it, the person will not be able to perceive it, and the psychotherapy won't help. And coming back to the profile of the perpetrators, to make a summary that we may talk about, we may ask a question: is there a correlation between animal abuse and domestic interpersonal violence? Of course there is. But what do you think? It is not a tragic time. It does not mean that the first time a person will abuse an animal, then he will automatically abuse a person or vice versa. If they conduct a crime in early childhood and adolescence, they can be imprisoned when they become adults, but this is not a rule. It does not mean that those who have abused somebody in their childhood will abuse somebody else later. It doesn't mean that those who abuse animals in adulthood have done it in the past. There is another important point. Anyone who abuses an animal does not necessarily have a mental illness. Suffering from mental illness, we should understand, this doesn't mean that this person is sick. Many times there is a malignant intention in most of the cases. Let's say in cases of depression, an animal can be neglected, or we don't know if the person definitely had very evil intention, malicious intention. I think that such cases should be evaluated very carefully from the general approach and general point of view. Also, anyone who abuses an animal may not have a mental illness. You understand, it is just an attempt to get lighter punishment sometimes on the part of the criminals. Therefore, what I have mentioned as a crime is according to the study that I hope you will be able to read. I mean, the abuser can be either a man or a woman, a child or an adult, a poor or a rich person, with any level of education. That we have seen in relation to the history of these individuals. They have certainly come into contact with abusers. They have been witnesses of violence, of victims of domestic violence. That is from an adult member of the family to animal abuse, to perpetrator, to bullying. And there was repeated violence. So a single violent accident is not enough. There were repeated cases of violence and abusive behavior towards people and animals in the past. As children, people have been shown antisocial behavior. People, they were involved in arson, vandalism, or theft. They have been sexually abused themselves. Maybe in the past they have been convicted. They have been later imprisoned as adults for interpersonal violent crimes. Their psychological characteristics are the lack of anger management and impulse control, lack of empathy, insensitivity, coldness. They seek to impose control on other people and animals. They have lack of remorse, lack of guilt. They show sadistic behavior and also have narcissistic elements. Narcissism does not mean a beautiful person who wants to look beautiful. It means one who underestimates who a person is, has a sense of grandeur, who considers other people inferior, and many other elements of Machiavellism. We are also talking about manipulative, trying to steer things to get what this person wants, and passive lack of remorse and complete lack of empathy. Intention to cause harm to another people. These elements constitute what we call the dark triad of animal abusers. Let's see which mental disorders are caused by another person. For example, Munchausen syndrome is antisocial personality disorder, hoarding disorder, or, for example, depression. Zoophilia as a sexual mental disorder. There are also relational disorders, obsessive compulsive disorder, estrous personality disorder, and many other criminal acts. I will also not dwell on statistics. In Greece, we have about 4,000 complaints to the police every year. About 4,000 cases and are being filed, while only 300 or 400 of them, of perpetrators, are arrested. This does not mean, of course, that they will not be brought to court. Let's not forget animals used for scientific purposes. Two, from up to 9,000 animals per year are used for scientific purposes from 2014 to 2020. About 48,000 animals are used every year for scientific purposes in Greece. And if
feel free to contact me to my social media and ask me anything you want. Thank you so much for hearing this presentation. I hope I didn't it wasn't tiring for you. You can find this study also in my page, Report Animal Abuse Greece. That is a page that helps people to report animal abuse. Here is the picture. You can find the study. These are my social media on Facebook, on Instagram, and also my Facebook page, Report Animal Abuse Greece. Thank you so much. I hoped I had much more time, but I have to respect the limits of this conference. I hope we can discuss again live the next time about these topics. Thank you so much. Be safe, be careful, and we can talk anything you want on my social media. Bye.
So thank you so much to Vangelis for that presentation. There were obviously plenty of technical hitches, translation hitches that we went through. As I said, what we will do is we will be uploading that video so that people can see it with the different translations attached to it. It was never intended to be easy, setting up the conference with lots of different languages. And as we've heard from Olga and from Kharkiv and all through the last 3 days, tackling animal abuse, stopping crime, stopping violent crime, it's never easy. We could have just simply gone with very simple videos, simple translations. But we wanted to listen to Vangelis. We know exactly what he's got to say. It's so important in terms of creating safer societies. So we will make sure that everybody who signed up to the conference gets access to that information. Apologies to him personally for the issues that we had, but wonderful information. Such a great honour that he could join our conference. Now, if I could hand over to Natalie. Thank you.
Дякую. Також дуже вдячна нашому попередньому спікеру Vangelis.
I'm also very much grateful to our speaker, Evangelis, for this great information. Once again, we are very sorry for these technical issues. There will be subtitles to the video and the video will be uploaded. Now I would like to introduce our next speaker. We have already mentioned Alevtina yesterday. She is the board member of Open Cages Ukraine. She participates in strategic planning and developing this organization in general. And now she is involved in business-oriented campaign, plant-based products. And it is about increasing plant-based products in the Ukrainian market. Alevtina will tell us about vegan food supplies in the army. This is a very important topic because I personally knew 3 vegan soldiers who are in the front line now, so I understand how important the topic is for them. Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me here. It was a very interesting topic. As far as I understand, I'm the last speaker for today, so I will try to talk about something probably highly positive. I have prepared this lecture in English, but as far as I understand, lots of people are listening to me in Ukrainian. So I will present this topic in Ukrainian, but the slides will be in English. I do hope you see the presentation. I do hope you hear me. You see my presentation, right?
Сподіваюся, що все працює. Значить, це тема сьогоднішньої лекції. Мене звати
This is the topic of today's lecture. My name is Alevtina Kozachuk. I have been working in the organization Open Cages of Ukraine, and I'm responsible for the project UA Plant-Based. Yesterday, you were listening to my colleague Olena, who told you a couple of words about our organization. So just some basic facts about our organization, who we are and what we are doing.
Займається зоозахистом саме фермерських тварин, тобто тих тварин, які
Open Cages Ukraine, this is the organization working on protecting the farm animals. These are animals that are grown for fur, for some other purposes. We are a member of Anima International Organization. that includes Poland, Denmark, Great Britain, France, Ukraine, and one more organization. And the focus of attention is farm animals, popularizing plant-based initiatives, plant-based advocacy, etc. Yesterday, Olana told you the principles of our activities. We try to follow the principle of effective altruism. And please, if you want to know more, get back to Olana's presentation. And for our effective performance, we got the award from Animal Charity Evaluators. It is an independent organization that is researches what organizations should be funded in order to spend this money in an efficient way. And the campaign actually was launched 2 years ago, but recently we have updated the logo and we have come up with the name UA Plant-Based. This is a campaign to develop the plant-based market as an alternative to meat, egg and milk and other products of animal origin. We cooperate with different producers, restaurants and shops. We deliver consultations for those who would like to introduce these products in the ratio or in the assortment of products in this or that shop. So we have a special campaign called Plant-Based Challenge, and you can subscribe to it. And for 10 days, you will get the information how you can balance your nutrition if you want to introduce more plant-based product in it. Here you see the photos about our work. You have the publications, what are plant alternatives, what is the attitude of people to them, a couple of examples from media campaigns. These are our media articles. And if you are interested, you may go to our website and you find more about our activities. But definitely, the war changed, influenced our activities. Now it's a bit easier for us because we already can plan for a longer period of time. But at the beginning of the war, we suspended our activities because definitely business stopped, and we decided to concentrate in 3 areas. We started donating to different public organizations, providing assistance to civilians and military people. We were writing articles about these businesses and organizations, and we started working on vegan or plant food supplies in the army. This is the plan, what will be in my lecture. So I will mention the point why it is important and why these activities are going on, what organizations are involved in order to help the soldiers who do not eat meat. What are the solutions for the problem? And finally, I will share our experience on the corresponding petition or motion. So according to our recent research, 1 in 5 Ukrainians either don't eat animal products at all or try to minimize their consumption. And this is a unique slide because this is a recent research. It has not been published as yet, and there are lots of information there, but this is one of the key points. And there are lots of reasons for this. Here you see the top reasons why people choose not to eat these products or reduce these products. First of all, this is ethical. Lots of people do not want to participate in the system of farm animals. Olana was talking a lot yesterday about it. The environmental issue is also becoming topical. We know how farming influences the environment. We know that it is one of the biggest pollution issue. It is the source of greenhouse gases. And therefore, lots of people want to take into account environmental issue. There are also religious reasons. Some people, lots of people actually try to participate in religious fasting, and in Ukrainian, the number of such people is really big, up to 70%. And also there are health-oriented reasons. It means people would like to eat more plants because they consider them to be healthier. And if this situation is in society in general, definitely the same situation is in the army. In the army, there are also lots of military people who do not consume meat or or animal-based products. Now we have about 700,000 fighters in the Ukrainian army, and if we extrapolate our data to this particular figure, it means at least 1,000 will be more plant products oriented. And the majority of combat ration include meat, soup with meat, cereals with meat. So the choice is actually not big, and actually the ingredients are almost the same. And up till now, the initiative was to make this combat ration more plant-based. The last time this combat ration were updated was several years ago, but again, they still included lots of meat. And here you see two quotes from our vegan soldiers. Petro Pavlov has written, "For a vegetarian, military rations only contain 4 plain biscuits and coffee." And Pavlov Shebaba, another Ukrainian fighter, he is well known among the Ukrainian military. He stated that many of my friends in the military are vegans or vegetarians, and like me, they stayed true to their moral principles and got undernourished. And during the first months of war, this person lost about 7 kilos of weight. So definitely the problem has not become obvious from the very beginning. At the moment we started thinking about it, there were organizations and businesses that wanted to resolve this problem, and they started doing it from the very first day. There is a Lviv Vegan Kitchen. This is the NGO in Lviv that every day cooks food for the civilians, for IDPs, and they cook plant-based products, and they also prepare combat ration based on plants and send them to the front. Also, there is another organization called Kozhna Tvarina. They also cook plant-based menus for civilians, but also deal with military needs. And also there are some other producers that either do the same or donate their products to these two organizations. For example, here we have the organization that produces canned soy meat and sends it to the military. So there are organizations active in this field. So you can see how these packages look like. Every package is for several people for several days, and as a result, the ration of our soldiers, vegan soldiers, become more diverse. Here you see the examples of products. For example, maybe dried dishes, they maybe some fruit snacks, nuts, all this stuff. But all these foods often have certain issues. First of all, we are talking about packaging, which may be very inconvenient or heavy for the soldiers. As a rule, they do not include enough protein, fat, and calories because they are mainly carbohydrate products, and also they require cooking or refrigerating, which is not always possible in the front line, because we are talking about combat rations This is mainly dried fruit. Therefore, more specialized technical food is in need. And immediately one of the soldiers, Petro Pavlov, became aware of it. And in June, he created the petition at the website of the Ukrainian president about introducing vegan and vegetarian combat ration for the armed forces of Ukraine. So actually he wanted these rations to be introduced for those who cannot eat meat or animal based products. And the petition has to get about 25,000 votes for 90 days. And when it was actually submitted, it was promoted in different channels in social media. I myself actually was a bit skeptical about it, but it became popular. Pavlo Vyshababa was actually very active in promoting this petition, and he is actually a public figure, he is a very well-respected figure, and therefore the petition got the necessary number of votes. And we also had our volunteer teamwork that was popularizing this petition or this motion. So for 2 or 3 months, we have been very active. We were trying to research how we can create such combat ration in Ukraine, what are the solutions used in the other armies of the world, and we were actually doing the research. This is the example what can be done. Definitely it is not ideal because still we have here some glass containers, but at least you can understand what we can use in order to compose these combat rations. So we were trying to make a video for the military, and practically every day we were trying to cooperate with famous people, bloggers, celebrities, and we were explaining why it is important and how they can help us. And also we published different posters, flyers, etc. And definitely there were lots of people involved, and as a result the petition gathered a lot of attention. And again, you see the examples of articles published, you see the celebrities supporting this petition, and actually 1 week before the period it had 25,000 votes. And actually we were looking forward to this. So now we expect that the president will consider this petition and give the answer. But during all this period, lots of people asked us, is it so important now? Is it really timely? Shouldn't we wait till the end of war and later address this issue? Just because now there are some other pressing problems. And this is probably not the most pressing one. And I would immediately answer the question and explain why it is important right now. First of all, is it timely? This question definitely is based on some sense and on some logic, but lots of people who ask this question think that the soldier has the only task. This is to survive, to come back alive. This is definitely so, but at the same time, one may have the impression that, well, a person should suffer because it is war and you cannot have all your habits satisfied. Well, it is understandable, but it is important to ensure some comfortable conditions for our soldiers in all the areas where it is possible. And we think it is important that if a person is fighting in the front line, this person should feel comfortable. And therefore, we would like to support all the soldiers who have different diets. You know that we have some soldiers coming from other countries. Definitely in America and in Great Britain, there are lots of people who keep to plant-based diet, and therefore they won't be able to consume the combat rations that we have, and if we do something for them, it will be just a plus for them. They definitely deserve nutritious diet, even if it is based on plant. And therefore, this issue definitely requires our attention. We have also heard from people saying that, well, these are two opposite ideals. One, a person does not eat meat because he or she does not want to kill animals, but at the same time, this person is now killing somebody. Well, this is not very clever idea, because these are people who are fighting for the country, and the soldiers who had to drop their moral principles definitely feel very difficult, very heavy psychological load, and therefore we should do everything possible to make them feel comfortable, at least in those areas where we can interfere. And there is also the statement that the war is already devastating enough when we are talking about the environment and health, and if we can take some very incremental solutions which will bring more environmental points to the environment, and if it is a plant-based diet, let it be small but plus. And definitely we cannot talk about certain date when the war is over. So there is no after the war statement at the moment. So if the war is going on, it means we have to do what we can do here and now, even if we are talking about just 1,000 people. And here you see the examples of this combat ration, plant-based. They are in the US, in Israel, in Great Britain, because there are lots of people who adhere to plant-based diet, and the tactical kitchens cook such dishes, but also there are the combat rations that include these products. So these are examples of what can be done in Ukraine. Definitely we shall wait for the presidential response, and we know that there are organizations that have already designed some combat rations. So there are three variants of how we can approach the issue: to create analog combat rations to those we already have, to order from private companies, for example, those that produce such plant-based dishes for tourism, and also we can order them from other countries. It is definitely more expensive, but at the same time it is quicker and we can do it immediately. We do hope the president will consider this petition, that the president will be able to understand why it is important, and our soldiers will be able to get the food they like and they need. Now I would like to address those who are not from Ukraine. If you can support us, please do it. I understand that the world is already tired of this war in Ukraine, and please continue spreading the information about the war in Ukraine in social media. Please write about it in all the channels you have. Go to anti-war marches, and you may assist our soldiers. And definitely you can ask the plant producers or producers of plant-based products whether they can deliver them to Ukraine, and they can send either the products themselves, or they can send the for example, vegetables or cereals, and then we already process them here. Here you see the contact information where you can donate. You have the reference to our organization, Open Cages, and also you see Lviv Vegan Kitchen and Kozhna Tvarina. These are two organizations that now feed our vegan and vegetarian soldiers. That's everything from me. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Так, питань в чаті не бачу.
We do not have any questions in the chat, but I see the statement that people do agree that vegans and vegetarians are fighting for their country, and that means that their needs should be taken into account as well. This is a very important topic. Thank you very much, Elefthina. In case there are any other questions or comments, we'll probably send them individually. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Elefthina. That was a really, really good presentation. So pleased you could join us. Thank you. And really, really important. Can the petition, can it be signed by people outside Ukraine? I have seen it.
No, it cannot be signed. It can only be signed with people with like Ukrainian passports, and it already gathered all the necessary votes. So it's done. We're just waiting for the result. That's it.
Okay. Well, if we need anything from the UK, please ask us if you need to share anything.
Thank you.
I appreciate your talk. So that concludes the conference. Thank you to everybody for speaking. I mean, it's been a hugely diverse range of speakers. We've actually had 23 speakers over the last 3 days from 8 different countries, 3 simultaneous translations, but with two other languages. There's over 200 people registered for the conference from 23 countries around the world. It's been phenomenal to put together, and it couldn't have been done without the IT company, without the translators who have done it amazingly well. I have no idea. I've got so much awe for people that can speak so many different languages and can translate simultaneously. So really, really appreciate everything that you've done. Natalie has done an amazing amount of work behind the scenes. I think she's probably not entirely honest about how much work it's actually taken, because I guess she's probably been up nights, early mornings, and juggling lots of other different things. So much thanks to Natalie for putting it all together. I don't know that I've really got much else to say. We will be sending out to everybody on the distribution lists all of the information. We'll be adding the videos to our YouTube channels. We'll be putting them on our social media. Our website pages, both the Ukrainian one and the English one, will be updated with more and more information as we get a chance to put it together from today. For me, a conference is never ending. It's kind of almost the beginning of the next phase. We're over 200 days into the war. It's going to go on. The animals are going to continue to need our help. We need to keep pushing for more and more support. It is finding a plan now. It's finding a pattern as the animals are getting some help. But as we go through the winter, that's going to increase. Next year, it's going to continue. Even when the war stops, there's going to be so many problems that need resolving. And we won't be able to tackle all the problems, certainly individually, but we will have a chance of tackling them working together. And that's really what the conference is about. So thank you again to everybody who's listened, everybody who's watched on streaming, everybody who's watched on Facebook, everybody who's followed the social media. If you do have any questions, send them through to Nature Watch, send them through to me if you like, mark@naturewatch.org. We will come back to you. And if we haven't got any answers, we'll find somebody who has got the answers. Is there anything else that anybody would like to say before we close down? I like the comment, wonderful conference. Thank you for all your hard work. Amazing people on the ground helping the animals. Yes, that's what it is. The conference was about getting those people who know what they're talking about, who are out on the front line helping animals. And hopefully we've been able to portray that and given them the voice. Their courage and compassion is beyond words. Yes, I agree. Thank you very much. We hope to catch up with you soon. Please follow everything that Nature Watch does, and please do something for World Animal Day, whatever it is, and tell us about it on social media. Thank you.